So we do want to welcome everybody to this evening's general meeting here at the Dono Recreation Center. We had originally been scheduled to take place in Otago, but unfortunately we've had to relocate. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have acceptance of the agenda, rules of order, follow-up from the general meeting of March 28th. We have a presentation from the Akwesasne Cultural Tourism Group, a presentation as well from the Grass River Cleanup Project, an update on the Indian Day School settlement, update on the Ontario and federal budgets for 2019. Business from the floor will entertain a resolution and make a couple announcements. So just on your agendas that you have with you in the that have been distributed, we will move the Grass River Cleanup Project to the first presentation this evening. It says update on there, but we do have a presentation for it. And then we'll proceed with the presentation for the cultural tourism, and then we'll do the update. So I just want to again recognize that we had been originally scheduled to take place in Otago, but today we're going to go again due to the unfortunate passing of a member in the district of Otago. So as we have been doing, we would like to pay tribute to all those members that we've lost over the last month. So I'll ask for a moment of silence at this time. All right, thank you very much. So on behalf of council, we extend our condolences to all those affected by loss, whether it be of the recent death or over the last month. So I've read the agenda. We just have a couple announcements on for the attendance. Chief Francis is on bereavement for the next few days. Chief Thompson is running late, as well as April Adams Phillips is running late. So again, the agenda, I have read that out. Could I have a mover to accept the agenda, please? Moved by Julie, second by Joel. All in favor? All right, thank you very much. So I'll run through the rules of order for this evening's general meeting. So we'll begin our meetings at approximately 6 p.m. and we'll proceed to around 8 p.m. depending on the discussion at that time, and make a determination if we'll continue to proceed past 8 p.m. Personal issues will not be dealt with in this forum. We ask that if you have personal issues that you'd like to raise, whether it be with a council member or about an issue that you'd like to speak about broadly, that you please address that with us individually and not in this public forum. As well, the meetings are recorded, so you'll see that there's a camera here to our side. The view of the camera is from the front row forward, so we ask that you please not identify any staff members of the Mohawk Council by name, simply because they're not here and the meeting is recorded for the viewing of the community. We ask that you please raise your hand if you have a question. I will make a list of speakers or people who want to address council. We ask that your questions please remain relevant to the presentation or the discussion item. Any items that you want to discuss with council or community broadly will be taken at the time of business from the floor. As well, we ask that you all please remain respectful of members of council and other members of the community. If for whatever reason that the meeting becomes to the point that it's no longer respectful and people are not obeying the rules, I will shut down the meeting and we will reconvene at another time or at next month's general meeting. As well, any issues that cannot be addressed by council tonight, we will make a list of them and take back for follow-up, and we will report them back to next month. So those are the rules of order for tonight's general meeting. We will go through the follow-up items that are in the packages as well from the last meeting of general meeting of March 28th. So I'll go through those for you, and then we can proceed with the rest of the agenda. So from last month's general meeting, there was a research construction company in Cornwall that will now service Otago or Akwesasne. So that is ongoing. Their community members have asked that a list be generated of businesses that will not come to the other parts of the community. We are in the process of continuing to collect that information for your information. Follow-up non-insured health benefits regarding statistics of individuals who receive the benefits who live in Akwesasne and off the territory. So there is a report in your packages that has been completed by the Department of Health and Portfolio that has been fulfilled. Follow-up, the Akwesasne Police regarding drug-related statistics, provide the statistics of the Akwesasne District meeting in the month of April. Public safety has done that. The portfolio for public safety from the District of Akwesasne has reported that at the district meeting. As well, those statistics are included in your packages for your information as well. So the other item was the follow-up to the Department of Health in regards to Narcan training in Akwesasne, and Chief Adams followed up on that, and that information briefing note has been provided in your packages as well. So the other, number 5 is follow-up with the Department of Technical Services and Akwesasne Police Services regarding stop signs or speed bumps in Ganago, mainly around 1st Street and 3rd Street. So DTS portfolio has been following up with the road manager. They're going to submit for a traffic study in all districts due to the issue of stop signs being raised from the general meeting. After the study reveals the final results and we forwarded the information to the community. So the work is begun to undertake to look at the signage within the district. So follow up with OBS in regards to garbage and dog issue on Stanley Island. So I'll turn to OBS portfolio to provide a verbal update on that. The portfolio for OBS, I can speak to that.
Yeah, I can.
Go ahead.
I can update on that one. With that, number 6, I did call OVS this morning. I've been calling them, and they said that the garbage issue's been handled through compliance, and the dog issue's been handled through compliance officers. So they're continuing to monitor anything. Even they're having a lot of dog issues, not just on Stanley Island, but on Cornwall Island and Ensenada. They're having a lot of dog issues. So this has been an ongoing issue, so they're on it. So I'll just give everybody an update. If you have any complaints or you feel that you need to call for somebody else's dog, your neighbor's dog, just get a hold of compliance and they'll assist you. Okay?
Thank you, Alan. All right, and the last follow-up item from the general meeting, March 28th, is the research for additional information on Indian Day School class action lawsuit. So we have provided information in your packages for that. We do have, we will speak briefly about it in later this evening's agenda. But following the general meeting, we did put out a notice saying that the deadlines that were referenced at the last general meeting were specifically for objections, but we'll speak about that a little bit further down the line. So that is the follow-up items from the last general meeting, and we will now turn to our first presentation of this evening. This evening, we're joined by Mr. Jay Wilkins from the Mohawk Tribe Environment Department, who will provide us with an update on the Grass River cleanup. Welcome.
Good evening. Like was mentioned, my name is Jay Wilkins. I'm the remedial project manager for the Grass River Superfund site on behalf of the tribe. Go to the next one. I'll go through, I only have a few slides, but I'll take any questions that you want to answer to. Just a little bit of a background for anybody who doesn't know. The Grass River Superfund site is 7.2 river miles of contaminated sediment. That this is actually the 30-year anniversary of the project, the studies and the pilot studies and the determination of how it's going to be cleaned up. 2019 is actually the 30 years of work that's been put into this. Well, in 2013, the record of decision came out from EPA on how to clean up the river. Basically what they're going to do, and I'll show you in a minute here, the near shore from the edge up until approximately 5 feet of water is going to get dredged out. All the contaminated sediment that is over 1 part per million ppb and backfill with clean material. And then the remaining parts of the river that we call the main channel will be capped into place. We go to the next one. This is just a slide for the work that went on last year. If anybody drove by the site, you saw a lot of stuff going on by the 131 bridge right next to, or across the river from the mall. The staging area that was up here is completed. That's where the majority of the work will take place. The settlements will come out of the river, go there, be processed, go to landfill. And then there's also a clean area there where material will be coming in from outside sources, clean material that will be placed back into the river. The secure landfill, some people mention it as Mount Alcoa when you drive by on 37, big mounds. That was expanded to take all the material that will be coming out of the river for this year, well, for the next 5 to 6 years. The unnamed tributary, which was remediated several years ago, was determined in the spring of last year to have a couple additional hot spots. They were taken out last year. The upland remediation needs to be completely dealt with before we clean up the river, otherwise they're just wasting their time. Alcohol 01 remediation, same thing. Alcohol 01 is Alcoa's main species alcohol, where the majority of the, actually not the majority, all the water, like a rain event or storm water that discharges from Alcoa after it goes through their wastewater management system. And then we had to do a series of stage capping tests. We found some areas in the bottom of the Grass River that were approximately 14 to 16 feet of supersaturated clay. Anytime we tried to put clean material on them, it just sank their heads. Like, what we had to do is go in and put layers, very thin layers, wait approximately 45 days, figure out how long they're settling, so we know as we go into the future how long it's going to take to cap those areas. We'll move on to the next one. This is the nearshore dredging. This is what we started last Wednesday. What the majority of 2019 is going to be. Probably the way this kind of work goes, it'll extend into 2020. It covers 23.4 acres along the near shore of the Grass River. And this was just last Wednesday. This is actually the initial bucket of contaminated material coming out of the Grass River after 30 years of planning and figuring out how we're going to do it. Over here, these are the resuspension curtains. This is what keeps the dirty water from flowing downstream. Now, it doesn't keep all of it. We realize that, that's why we monitor it very heavily to see. You can tell in just some of the pictures the difference between the actual work inside the orange boom and the water outside. Go to the next one. In the previous slide, you saw the environmental dredge bucket. What they do is they load it onto these hopper barges, and then there's an 850 center bogan that puts the material into this wobbler system. It gets mixed with Portland cement until it's solidified, where it's dry enough and safe enough to transport it on the road up to the landfill. Now, starting next year, when we move into the second half of this, which is capping the main channel of the river, this is pretty much what's going to happen. New York State DEC and SRMT are still fighting to get a better habitat layer in this. But basically what's going to happen is the upper stretch from the Alcoa facility down to basically the bridge right in front of the mall in Messina is going to get what's called an armored cap. It'll consist of a sand isolation layer, another filtration layer, and then approximately 13 to 16 inches of stone, because it's an ice-prone or ice scour area. There has been events where ice is blocked up there, and what it does is when it chokes down the volume of the water that's going underneath the ice, that velocity churns. So if we put just a normal sand cap over that to be protective, it would, if one of those events was to happen, it would just basically wash the sand down there. Now, the lower section of the river, basically that bridge at the mall to where it meets the St. Lawrence River, will get a 1-foot sand cap. Next slide. The environmental monitoring that's going on. We monitor every day the air quality, the water quality, both for PCBs, dust, and VOCs for the air. Water monitoring PCBs and total suspended solids, which is basically similar to turbidity, how much of this stuff is moving down the river. Also monthly, I was able to get some conjoint PCB sampling done at the water intake in Racket Point. Next slide. These are our mobile air monitoring stations. We heard a lot from the community in the last 3 or 4 years, both the Messina community and the Akwesasne community, that what we were doing for our air monitoring, or what EPA was requiring for air monitoring, wasn't enough. So this year we put in place mobile air monitorings that will be going with the dredging rigs, moving all the way down the river. And I don't know if you can see them in the back here, there's 3 dots. So the dredging rig will be here, and then there'll be 3 air monitors that will do real-time daily data for these houses along the river. And they will move as the dredges move downriver. Next one. This is our water column sampling. We will have our furthest point upstream will be sampled, as well as our near field location, which is approximately 1,000 feet down from any dredge that's doing intrusive work, as well as at the mouth of the Grass River, just inside, or just outside the mouth into St. Lawrence, and there's a water intake at the old Reynolds plant, Alcoa East plant, as well as the Racket Point SRMT water intake. Next slide. The outfall that I mentioned on earlier, T1 North was an investigation that 3 years ago SRMT brought in a geologist to look at some data. He found a data gap that we had in this area. Basically, when we did the core drills, we went down 16 feet and found upwards of 12,000 parts per million PCB. So this entire area here in pink is coming out with a cut of anywhere from 12 to 16 feet. This is Alcoa 1 that I mentioned, where all the stormwater from Alcoa goes through their water treatment system and then discharges into the Grass River. That was all remediated last fall. And then is off this map. But right over here, there was 3 small floodplains that we addressed last year too. Next one. When this project finally gets done, I can't stand up here and tell you if it's going to be 4 years, 10 years. I don't think anybody really knows. But the staging area that you saw will be turned over to the NRD program, and it will be a boat launch for the community. There'll also be a fishing dock and a couple other things that are there. That's all I have for slides.
Are there any questions on the presentation? Over here first and then to the back. Go ahead.
What's that NRD program?
The NRD program is a natural resource damage assessment program that the tribe is the lead on. Basically, it was a lawsuit where the tribe, New York State, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and NOAA did a settlement 6 years ago now with Alcoa for a lump of money that they were able to use to do projects with.
Another question?
You said you were taking samples at Racket?
Yes. The SRMT water intake, that's it?
Did you find anything there, or you just sending it out?
Not to this day. They've been doing sampling there since 2005, and they haven't had any detections yet. But those were all studies. They were minor areas that we worked on. This is full-scale in-river construction this year, so we will ramp up the
Testing?
testing.
Because there's excuse me, there's water intake in St. Regis too, and down towards Snide, that the people,
There's water intake
they
in
get
St.
their
Regis.
water, yeah, you get their water from the river. Are they gonna be testing that once they start
I was not
dredging?
aware that there was water intake in
For
St. Regis.
water line people, yeah. You weren't aware of that?
No, but I will definitely look into it.
Anything else?
Are they putting any air monitors further down so we can know what's happening if it's coming our way?
Yeah, we have pushed and pushed and pushed for the last few years, and my counterpart Craig, who works on the GM site, has too. And we haven't gotten very far with EPA as far as putting air monitors down closer to the reservation, but we still continue to work on that.
The tribe doesn't have any on their own?
Not related with these projects.
Thank you. In the back?
I think that before this all got started, you guys all should have went and checked out, like she's talking about the water intake, the sandwiches. I think you guys should have really looked into all of that first before we started disturbing all this. No, while this is all being disturbed, you know exactly how much is escaping and flowing down our rivers.
At the Farkfield location last year, when we did some work, we didn't have any detections. But until we actually get up and going this year, I can't answer that question yet.
Because while that's all being disturbed and all that stuff rises, there's a lot that's escaping.
Yes.
More than what you are collecting.
Yes.
So that's kind of a dangerous thing, and I think that maybe our waters too should be monitored too, not just one specific area.
If there's a water intake in St., I will look into that tomorrow. As I don't know if our office do that. And they should.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Is there any other questions for the presentation? Go ahead, then. So we
Yeah. I have some questions. One is if you guys are doing a study on the currents, the strong currents that could be affected by this, and how far this debris can be located downriver? Because from the runoff from the Messina Point and Northern on the west end, those are pretty strong currents. So I already know, being a fisherman in this area, that current is going to push majority of this debris that's going to be escaping towards the southern shore. Now, how far it reaches to the southern shore, and a concern of ours is also the intake in the Navigo, because we also have an intake valve that's supplying water systems to the supplying water to Canadabo and Gisnania area. So I was wondering if you can take, once you detect a reading in Racket, then they should send up a flag to start taking readings downriver. And it would have been interesting to see if there was some type of a dye that you could throw in that's environmentally safe to see exactly how these currents react before the dredging even started. So that way you can track how far possibly this debris will go and could affect all these other water intakes. And another one is, could you explain to the community here what the 12,000 parts per million means? And how heavy that is? And where is it to the warning state? Or is it just a minute type issue? To me, anything in the water that's scary at 12,000 parts per million should be all of our concern, not just, and we have to make sure that all the areas were covered before the dredging even started. So maybe the community would like to know what that actually means, 12 parts per million.
To address your first question, the tribe pushed last year with EPA when all the leadership got together that EPA hire a fluvial geomorphologist. It's a very fancy word for somebody who studies rivers, how they flow, how they relate to the bottom when they flow. And he was an independent party from Army Corps of Engineers, and his recommendation was that the sediment transport for PCBs wouldn't leave the grass river. Now, do I believe that? I don't know, we'll have to see. That'll be something we will definitely be watching. Because it is a backflow area, every time they open the locks, it flushes itself back upstream. But I'll mention to him about the dye. It has been used, I know it was used on the Fox River at a different Superfund site with some of their tributaries. So I'll run that by him and see what he has to say. And your second question, the cleanup trigger for any sediment at this site was 1 part per million. Anything that was sampled that's above 1 part per million, we are either taking it out or capping it. That was our human health threshold. So to put that in perspective, 12,000 parts per million, way up here. Completely unacceptable and completely needed to be addressed for that area before we do any other remediation work. And that's upland, that's not in the river. We have some pictures, Ken Jock gave me some pictures of a historical drainage pipe that was there, as well as when we did the original testing on the area. At 15, 16 feet, we were hitting coke bottles. So we know that this was a fill area, and what it appeared to be was fill that they took from the old furnaces, the brick from the old furnaces, and that's how they built the road.
Small thing. Small.
Yes, so that's why we think that amount of PCBs is there.
Well, that's kind of concerning, is because with the rain and the way the climate change has been happening, so a lot of runoff is seeping back into the river, and then you have the banks with 12,000.
Yeah, that's why that's all coming out before we clean
Yeah,
up.
so you're concentrating on the upland first before you hit the marsh.
Any other questions from the committee on this? Go ahead over here.
Is it safe for people to be in the river?
That's a great question. That came up last year. Department of Health actually went and put out a whole publication for the community. Now, with these areas, we have advisories with EPA, Department of Health, the tribe. We can't tell you not to swim in these areas. We can't tell you not to eat the fish. We can just advise you, recommend that you don't, and that's what they did. That's DOH has, Department of Health has consumed no fish from the Grass River. That was just recently, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, extended just about down to Racket Point. And it's also, if you're going to swim in the river, try to avoid contact with the sediment.
Well, how do we know that? You know, the kids are swimming in there, they're boating, they're swimming, they're fishing. People are eating the fish. I don't know. It's,
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a tough thing. I don't have children. If I had children, would I let them swim in the Grass River? No. If that can answer your question.
well, or the St. Lawrence River, because that's going to be moving. It's not going to get to the end of the Grass River and then just say, oh, this is the boundary. We're going to stop. We can't
The
go
way
any
EPA
further.
thinks so, though.
Just like a fish.
Yeah, they don't think our fish go from Canada to the U.S.
You know, they're going to move. They have their patterns that they're going to go wherever in that river. It's not going to stop right at the mouth of the St. Lawrence there, or the Grass.
Yes, we completely agree with you. And we do our best to try and convince EPA of that.
Okay.
So, for EPA, when are they coming back next?
When are they coming back?
When is she going to be doing her presentation, that project manager?
Next Wednesday. We do it every month. Next Wednesday, it'll be at the Hawkins Point Visitor Center. I believe at 6:30. I can get whoever the information to put it on your Facebook page or web page.
Okay, question down here?
Yeah, I have a question. If for say it does reach our inlets, will our water treatment be able to separate that contaminant to make it to be safe, still drinking water? Will they be able to, let's say they come into contact with it, how would it be separated? If you were to monitor and say, hey, listen, it's going into your inlet, we need to shut that down, it's going to be till it separates. Is that going to happen?
The way they monitor at Racket is they take 2 samples daily in the morning. They take basically the water coming in untreated, and then they take a treated sample. And then I get the results from both of them, whether they be non-detect or a little bit of a detection. I'm not clear on what kind of filtration system they have there. I don't know what kind of filtration system there is in St. But so I can't answer that question.
So can we be added to that daily testing?
I will try.
And I expect it to be at no cost to Mohawk Council or
No.
anybody else, but I would
No, we're
expect
not.
that we'd be added to that daily testing.
It would be no cost, and now that I know there's one there, I will look into it.
Yeah, because Racket is, as mentioned, is right there. You say your advisories go as far as Racket, then it goes further because it will go further, it'll flow. So yeah, it would be in everyone's best interest that we'd be added to that.
Thank you. Over here? Yeah.
We were just talking about the water treatment plant in the village, and from what I heard of the village water treatment, I'm not positive if it has a carbon treatment component into the system. So I really can't say for sure. If it has the carbon treatment system, it would be able to filter out the organics, which is PCBs. It would address that. The water treatment plant for Racket, for the tribe, it has that carbon treatment. So it can, if there's PCBs in the water, it would address it. And a little bit more on with a discussion about whether or not to collect samples for the village. When General Motors dredged the St. Lawrence, that work was about less than a mile from the Rocket Point treatment plant. And during all that time for the dredging of the St. Lawrence in front of General Motors, there wasn't any elevated results of the raw water, pre-treated water. There was some detections, but nothing high. And it was from about 2 samples. And this was about 96, 95 when that work was done. And I wasn't involved during that work, but so I can't say why the village wasn't treated at that time and tested, but it does seem, I think it was because, I'm just trying to think what was people's discussions then, was that because the one in Racket was so close, if you're going to have a detection, you would find it right at the closest receptor, which was in the one in Racket. But I think it seems kind of reasonable now to collect a sample now at the one at the village to see where it's at. And I think it seems reasonable for us for the tribe to ask if we start getting detections, even just minor detections at the Racket Point intake, then that could start up more constant sampling for the village.
Yeah, I got no problem recommending that. So.
Thank you.
How many years has that been sitting there like that at the Grass River?
Historically, probably, I'm right around 1952.
And it just sat there, right? It didn't go nowhere.
It's migrated its way the whole 7.2 river miles.
So by now that these are all messing around with it, it's going to become worse than what it did while it was sitting there when nobody was messing with it. So now that it's being messed with, it's going to be more. So,
That's one of the things you have to weigh when it comes to human health risks. Do you deal with the 2 years of intrusive work in that to be more protective in the long run? Or do you let it sit there so it's a human health risk?
well, overall, they shouldn't have left it in the river anyways.
Completely agree with you.
You know, they should have used their brain and put it in something that it's not laying in the river.
Back then, they didn't know it was harmful to humans.
Okay, I have one right here, in the back over here.
Well, with all the contaminants in our rivers anyway, does Mohawk Council test at our treatment plants on a regular basis anyway? I mean, they should be.
Yeah, they test it.
They do, but right now, we're looking into the process of water intake protection. And that's what we're trying to implement, is a water intake protection plan. And that's been sitting on DTS's radar for a while. And how we go about it, we're still researching and studying. And we're just looking at talking to the professionals on how to do that. And what's the best high percentage successful rate to get that done that limits almost close to zero of contaminants coming into your water system. So we're looking at that. It's on our radar. We discussed it last year, and we're going to be moving forward on that because it's essential. Whatever happens upriver is going to affect us because we're downriver. So that's something should have been discussed when we started to go to water treatment plants instead of one water. We should have had that side by side. It's just like the federal government giving us water treatment systems, but they don't accompany it with solid waste, not solid waste, but wastewater treatment systems. It goes hand in hand, and we got one, but we don't have the other. So, you know, and that's been a point that Henry Lickersack made, and there's a higher level of environmental professionals that are aware of it also, and they addressed it with the federal government, is that you're treating the First Nations people's bad by supplying them with state-of-the-art water treatment plants, but you're not giving them the state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plants that will go hand in hand with it. So we're aware.
Okay, right here, and then we're going to wrap up.
The sturgeon, they go up there
Mm-hmm.
to lay their eggs. What are they doing with those fish to help them? I mean, they're like on an endangered species list. Our people are fishing those fish. They're bottom feeders. How is that going to affect our people? I think we're seeing it now with the health of our community. We're dying. We're sick with cancer. We have babies being born abnormally. It's not normal what's happening here. Diabetes. It's crazy what that PCBs is doing, and not only just the PCBs. I mean the chemicals that they've dispersed into our community. It's awful what they did.
Yeah, it's very gut-wrenching. I mean, I can answer this because for our office, I have worked with the sturgeon now since 2010, and we have a window in place because the water temperature this morning was 11.5 degrees. So in another half a degree, it triggers sturgeon spawning in the Grass River. They're there right now. They should be spawning in the next couple days. We have a window up in that area where there is absolutely no work, nothing being done in the river. until June 15th, when those fish and the larval drift is done. And then they can go up there and address the work they need to do up there. Our office did do some work back when I was a fisheries technician with either 20 or 21 sturgeon that I did full necropsies on, tested everything that was with those fish, and they did come back non-detect. These are Lake St. Francis fish that I was able to work with Danny Boy Jacobs with. But as far as the Grass River fish, none of them have been tested because, like you said, they are a T&E species threatened and endangered species in New York State. So I can't just go out and harvest one to see how much BCBs are in them.
Maybe you should have got one of us to do it so we can
I tried.
know what's
I
happening.
tried. But what they have, what New York State and EPA has done is, because I have done this work before, and obviously nobody in New York State has done it, if they do accidentally kill one, the tribe will be getting that fish, so I can do a full necropsy on it.
I think that should have been something that they should have looked at before they even went in there to test that fish, because our people are eating that.
I agree, and we tried very hard, but
I mean, I know we don't matter because we're Indians. We're not voters in their elections or whatever. We're not citizens over there. We're not citizens in Canada, but we're humans.
yeah, and I completely agree with you. I would have loved to test some of those fish, but New York State thought better of it, so.
Okay. All right, I want to thank Jay Wilkins, who works with the Central Mohawk tribe. He's not an EPA employee,
Yeah, I don't work
not
for
an
EPA.
employee of so he
Yeah,
works.
but you work with the tribe when they should be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to make that clear, though. I
funding for
mean,
us.
he doesn't represent the company, the government agency that's overseeing the cleanup, and he does not represent the company that is polluting and is doing the cleanup or part of the cleanup. He's part of the Singers Mohawk tribe that is the liaison with that. So, thank you very much for sharing that information with us. As he mentioned, they do have a meeting in various locations once a month.
Once a month. Every second Wednesday of the month.
Okay, every second Wednesday of the month. We will get that information to share with you here. We will also follow up, as a follow-up on the testing question for that of our intakes here, and we'll report that back to the general meeting. As well, we will, just testing in general, if what was mentioned, the tribe has a certain component of their testing that detects that and removes it, if we have that in our system as well. So we'll report that back in this month. So thank you very much to you. So we do have another presentation on the on schedule for the environment, and I do want to welcome Scott Peters from the Mohawk County Akwesasne Environment Department, who will give a brief update on the impacts of the fishing.
You got to present just what I was asked to do was fish consumption guidelines, I guess, advising. So anyways, what it is just basically 4 studies that have been done by, I guess, the Mohawk Council, would have been the St. Louis Band of Indians, I guess, in '79. But they started with a study looking at contamination in all fish. It was Myrex, PCBs, and mercury. From that, in 1978, they established 1979, okay, we're putting this advisory out to tell people this is too dangerous for you to eat. In that time, in the next 10 years, I guess Henry says, is that the fish consumption kind of dropped dramatically. And what we ended up seeing within this time to 1986, but the next one was the next study by Selikov, Irving Selikov, was a neurobehavioral assessment of Mohawk Indians for subclinical indications of mercury neurotoxicity. Basically, they were looking at the mercury content in the brain. That was due to the fluoride levels and other mercury levels they were finding in the fish and plants on Coral Island. So, again, the advisory went out to the community, just stopped. And by this time, they were seeing already levels of there was contamination, those contaminants going down. And even during the 79 study, it was more than just those three components that MCA had looked at. I'll just call it MCA for now, but that's what they looked at. There was 105. They went total spectrum. They looked at everything that was available at the time. And those were the big ones that what probably does. Next one is in 2009, they jumped way ahead. Another one, consumption, fish catching consumption study within the community was done. I haven't seen the report. I don't know how it ended, so I don't have any results from that. The next one after that was a little bit more comprehensive in 2014. First Nations Food and Nutrition Study. What's this? And what we looked at here was just these components. And what we did in that year was we collected all kinds of foods that people harvested, they grew, whatever you were using. And we found with this study, they looked at mercury and other pharmaceuticals, and they, within Health Canada guidelines, were relatively low, I guess. Low to high, it was in that range. There was no real worry from anybody or anything at the time. And again, it's just those things that they're looking at. It's more, for me, what I was looking at, hopefully, was the pharmaceuticals. Like we're talking now with the water treatment. Let's see what else we can do with that. And along with that, next one. Yeah, basically, we're good around here. But they didn't look at the PCBs. They didn't look at any other, like Myrex or any other of the, what is it, 230 components now that are possibly in the river that could do something. Next one. This one, if you want to see it, it's just the tribe's advisory they put out like 3 years ago. And that just shows their contamination, actually just consumption levels. If you can click to that, please. Okay, anyways, this one just shows you how it gets into the food chain. Your sediments, like they were talking about earlier, it gets into the bugs get eaten by the upper predators like the fish, the birds, mates, and eventually us. So at the moment, we can't really tell you anything about, all we can continue to say is there's an advisory out there. Don't eat the fish if you can help. If I could show you that one, it's online, the tribe's advisory, just Google it if you can. And it tells you the portion size, fish to eat, how much per month, and then if you body weight, things like that. So that's all we can say, actually. We're not, Jay had mentioned earlier, we're not going to tell you not to eat the fish. It's up to you and you.
All right. Thank you very much, Scott. Anything else on that?
Just, again, how you get the PCBs through what you eat, how it's passed on to you from your mom, or different ways. That's all.
All right, any questions on that? We'll start over here, then.
Mine's not on PCB, so I'll wait until the rest comes on.
Mine's just a general question, I guess, to the council and the environment. During this process of this dredging going on, not just eating the fish, but like my kid swims in this river, is there going to be a way that I can get my riverfront tested? I think that's already there, but I don't really know how to do that. Like, can I get tested for PCBs as well as all the other contaminants, like to make sure it's safe that my kid is even near the river?
Right now, all we can do is have community health come in and test the beach or the front of your riverfront. Have it, and not they do E. coli and things like that. To do PCBs, maybe we can work with the tribe to get some kind of program going or something like that, just to test further downstream, because as you can see that map they put out with their fish advisory, again, it was mentioned, everything stopped at the border. Nothing goes beyond that.
Yeah, like I got a dead sturgeon there right now. He could be full of this stuff, right?
Well, that's the other part of the too, the testing we're looking at. It costs a lot of money.
I think our health is worth a lot of money. Huh?
Not for the tribe or band, but for the individual. I mean, they.
So that's one of the avenues we're actually looking at now, is possibly crowdsourcing to get.
Yeah, like I would pay for that testing, not if it's $20,000 a year.
That's where we got to start, is looking at what labs can do these, at least what they call presence absence tests,
Yeah.
is it there, is it not there? From there, then it's like, you go up a little bit more, because now you're gonna define how much is there, what's it in, what's the
We're
soil?
surrounded by universities that are good at this work.
That's
You know,
what we
we can
do
get it
there.
at a cost efficient,
Yep.
I mean, I wanna
Yeah.
find ways.
Okay. You had your hand up over here? Okay.
I just went to the doctor's today, and she gave me a requisition to go get some blood work and to test for these heavy metals. And it's not covered, so we have to pay it $170, but they'll test your plasma lipid to see, because the PCBs goes into your fat.
Yep.
So we have it floating around in our system. So if you want to know what your levels are, you can go to the clinic and ask her to get this PCB panel, and she'll also put in there for mercury and fluoride. I'm gonna get my blood tested because I want to know.
Yep. And I know that's what Henry Lickers has been advocating for people to do all along.
Well,
That's for
I
those
think
reasons.
we need to take it seriously,
Yep.
because we can't go back across the ocean to some fresh, pristine land. We're from here. We can't go anywhere.
Yep.
So we're sick.
Yeah, absolutely. Angie, did you have something you wanted
Yeah,
to?
this isn't on the PGDs or Grants River, it's on the Emerald Ash Water. And I know that the tribe has been doing a lot of work on, like the Emerald Ash Water. And it's here on the island, and I put a call into the environment to find out what the protocol now, whenever we do find emerald or from the trees on properties. And I know it's not me, just one person. And so that's what I was inquiring about.
I'll be there 8:30 in the morning, but it's possible, if you have it, I'm gonna recommend you remove your trees, basically.
Well, what do we do with the wood?
Chop it up. If you can get a chipper, you just put it in there and then give what the best, or burn it right there.
Well, like I think that Ministry of Natural Services or whatever, Natural Resources should be able to help you. Because what are they doing off reserve? When they find emerald?
Right now, all they did was they quarantined basically all of eastern Ontario to Toronto. That whole section is just basically under quarantine, and municipalities and everybody's just basically, what you can do. We're part of a network through eastern Ontario, Mohawk Forest. And basically, we're on our own. We detected it back in 2012, I think, under the bridge. And we asked for help, and they said, well, just like Cornwall, you're on your own. We knew it was there. It was just a matter of time before we found it. So you got a plan. But at the moment, it's why Richard David and Les have been planting seeds.
But MCA, no matter what, should have a plan anyways.
Yeah, we do.
With our trees.
And at the moment,
We need
that
to
is.
know like what you want us to do when we see it. I mean, until I get on some type of recommendation, I'll probably just leave it there.
Yep.
And there's probably about 10 trees now that are infected.
That's the other part of it, is that's just what you see. When you drive down the road, right down the island, I'm sure it's already there. We've had reports down on the east
The
end of
only thing is
the
that I know that the neighbor asked last year a tree person, like how much it would cost to take down 4 trees, and it was $2,500.
Yep.
And that's like, so we're just gonna leave it up.
Well, that's the other part of it. Arborists aren't cheap either. And
Well, MCA will need to be proactive and begin to say to the people, this is what you need to do. This is what just cut down the tree as soon as you know this. Maybe there's no solution. Just let us know that. And if we can avoid it, then we'll cut it down. If we can't, then we don't. Because my understanding is that they only go after bright ash.
they only go after ash.
Ash. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Right here.
Have you tried to explore the option of hemp? Plant hemp in the soil all along the trees and the coastline? Because that cleans all the soil. It cleans radiation, it cleans everything up.
I think they were talking about clovers for bioremediation to ash. And it's like you can get 2-3 seasons in it. But right now, it's about, as much as I've heard of that.
So, consider. Thompson?
I was wondering, in front of General Motors plant, they dredge that all out. And then they go upriver and they're dredging out the Grass River. And that's gonna come back and cover back up where they dredged out. Has that been looked at? What are you gonna do about that?
For us, we can't do anything about it except for get updates from the tribe. So,
But they're working, you are working together on it, aren't you?
not often. We get updates from them, we're lucky. And that's where we're trying to get more work done with them. Like Jay was the sturgeon and the fish. We've been working together with Les Benedict and myself. We've been working together with forestry. And there's things like that. And that's the other part of it. Right now in my program, I'm going to complain in front of everybody, so just bear with me. But we're down to 3 people that are out in the field now. And like she said, I'm only one person. You know, it's difficult.
We'll look into that. As you said, so. Connie?
Just a couple of things with regards to the community members' comments about testing and can it be done and what's the cost. Maybe we need to do some research and find out some information, how many beaches, locations, what are we testing for, what those costs associated, so that we can look at what we're gonna look for funding to get this done. With regards to the comment on the health stuff, we should be doing a health study. A lot of people are going to need to do that to find out what's in our blood, and a lot of that is causing the cancers and causing these other things that we seem to not be able to recover from. So maybe we need to, as mentioned, pull it together and get a true health study done of what's happening now, what's going to happen next, what happened before us, where this all came from, the history. We need to truly start tracking this to find out what's happening. You know, we know we're sick all the time. We have to stop being sick. The third thing too was with regards to the trees and stuff. The community members asking for information. So we need to hold info sessions. A lot of people use those trees for their crafts, for their livelihoods. So we have to figure out what we can look at to try to work on this and save some of it. So we need to provide info sessions and just information to people where they don't have to constantly come here and ask for it. As far as MCA and the tribe, this is one of the things that has to be constantly working together on. It's the environment. They spoke of air testing quality. That's everywhere. You can't stop that testing. You can't stop the water. You can't stop any of it. That's where we're getting sick.
And it's nothing against Jay or the tribe, because like I said, I love the work you've done with us so far as a surgeon. But he did mention the work he did was in Lake St. Francis. He's with the tribe now. What's going on there? How come he's getting paid to work in Lake St. Francis?
Okay, Daryl, and then we're going to wrap up. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I have one last question about the water testing. So you had mentioned, and they had mentioned earlier, that there's only the advisories and it's only recommended that you don't eat the fish. As for the people that are swimming or actively in these areas, because of my own limited knowledge with like PCBs and mercury and things like that, would it something be recommended as simply to like rinse off after going, or just not going at all? Like, is there simple recommendations that can be given like prior to this testing?
Like Jay said, I would recommend staying off the Grass River this summer. Don't take any boats up there. The less disturbance of any of that sediment is the best this year anyways. Don't forget, on the north shore of Cornwall Island, you have zones that are there's 4 zones, basically the whole north shore, where you're not supposed to touch the sediment because of mercury. You're not supposed to disturb any of that. So it's all surrounded. What the tribe is trying to do right now is get their name off of an area of concern list. Same with Cornwall. They don't want to be known as an area of concern anymore, so they want to be pushing it to like an area of recovery is what they've been saying. And we're still saying, no, we're not there. We can't do that. We should still be working together like everybody else is saying. But yeah, it's just little things that we need to work on internally, so it's getting done. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Daryl?
Yeah, one of the things with the invasive species, the tribe has a program that they have in place where what they're doing is they're going around, they're cutting down all ash trees, whether it's black ash, they're looking at them and they're harvesting them and they're laying them down and they're just leaving them in the woods. But also with that once they cut the trees down, they have another program in place. They're starting to plant sentinel trees to combat, the sentinel trees combat against the invasive species. So it's a program that's been ongoing. I have some information on it. I'll be willing to share. I'll try to come up the next general meeting and have some information on it, on what the programs that they have in place and how they're going about it. But they've been ongoing for the last 5 years with that. And it seems to be, I think, the decline in the bugs over there on the other side because of the harvesting of the trees declined. So I'll get that information. I'll have it at the next general meeting.
Okay, thank you.
What if he's looking to the hemp
Yeah.
too, like, you suggested? That's a great suggestion right there, looking
Yeah.
to the hemp.
Well, now, you know, this health issue and the cancer has been an issue for so many years. I mean, I've been coming to meetings for 25 years and it's been an issue. Make it an action item and assign somebody to start this, get it going. I mean, we've talked about it. People are dying.
What is the area of concern? Where are they?
One is the Grass River site, Superfund site, GM site is the other, and then you got the Cordals and all the other good stuff on the Canadian side, Domtar. So Cornwall was listed, and what MCA had recommended back in the 90s was not to keep them separate because of the funding, and Henry saw the fight that was going to happen. To keep it all as one site, but the states in Canada overruled, they kept it separate.
It's an environmental classification.
It's,
based on government regulations.
there's like 200 around America right now, all of them around like GM, General Electric, stuff like that.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, like, for the remediation of the shoreline, have you guys also looked into mushrooms? Because I know how the mycelium can extrapolate different contaminants, and through molecular decomposition, they're able to break down the complex particles into more simple particles that the environment can use, so.
Yeah, well, there's one of the things too is that you got to dispose of that afterwards because it becomes hazardous material. So with clovers and with, like, I think there's been different types of bioremediation looked at so far, and
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah, because I was under the impression that after they do that, when it breaks it down into the simple compounds, that it's able to, the environment's able to use it and it's not toxic to it, the way that it breaks it down through the molecular decomposition. So I have tons of books on it. I could give some to you guys.
Yes.
When they cleaned up in front of General Motors, they put a wall. Are they gonna do a similar thing on the wreck? They're gonna put pylons on, clean that area and then change it?
I have to check into that. I don't know.
That'll minimize the
only
sediment.
place that I've seen where they're putting those barriers up are right along the, like Jay showed, along the bridge there on 131, across from the mall. That's the only place I've seen it so far. I don't think they have plans to do it anywhere else along the
I
shoreline.
think they said they were gonna use silk curtains.
Every once in a while down the river, yeah. I'm sure they have to have it up if they're dredging. Yeah. And that'll stop a lot of the debris. Not a lot, but, you know, every once in a while.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Scott, for sharing the information on the fish consumption. We will take back what we have heard tonight on the Emerald Ash Borer, as well as the question on working closely with the tribe and the information sharing there. And we will also take a look at some of these alternatives that are raised with the hemp and the mushrooms that may be alternative ways to help with cleaning up the environment. So I do want to turn to our next guest. I apologize for pushing you back on the agenda. I hope you didn't expect to be out of here by 6:30. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for your understanding. So I want to welcome Penny Peters and other representatives from the Southern Swamp Tribes who are working on the Akwesasne cultural tourism strategy that has been ongoing for a number of years. So I will turn it over to you.
Penny and Nuggets, Penny Peters. Speaking of working together, that's kind of what our project's all about, is focusing on one Akwesasne. So I'll begin our presentation. I also have the rest of my team here, with the exception of our project director, I have Latoya O'Rourke, Miguel McDonald, and our director, James Lazar, is here as well. So So again, we are with the St. Regis Mohawk Tribes Tourism Team. We started in 2017. And we are there because the tribe received a grant called the Creating Akwesasne Tourism Industry and Jobs. So this whole project, and you can see who's involved. Our project director is actually away on travel right now, which is Rayanne Adams, so she's the other piece of our team that's missing tonight. And we're guided by what we call the Akwesasne Tourism Working Group. I think we would have presented maybe 2.5, 3 years ago at a general meeting on our ATSAP. So the working group is comprised of, you'll see all the logos across the top of who we work with. We've also added a few since then. We work with some of the major businesses like CAA Management, Harbor Management Group attends some of our meetings. The whole project is about collaborating together, sharing resources to get this up and running. So again, the ATSAP is part of what that was our original strategic plan to get this all rolling. It kind of laid out a base timeline. It also helped us to get this grant, put a lot of money in it to hire the 3 of us who could solely focus on this for 5 years. Our vision is that we are a proud community sharing world-class tourism experiences that celebrate our environment, heritage, and language. And the mission is to develop sustainable tourism through mutually beneficial partnerships. And that was really important to us, having the mutually beneficial partnerships, because through the years, we've done a lot of tourism, but we've always went outside and did that tourism. So we've kind of been taken advantage of a little bit, and now we're starting to say, hey, if we're making money for all of these outside organizations, presenting there and bringing people to their organizations, why can't we start creating these partnerships and bringing people to Akwesasne to spend their dollars on more than just our traditional crafts and so on, but buying their gas here, staying in our hotels, eating at our restaurants, so on and so forth. Our guiding principles, which we go over at every meeting, and they're always present to make sure that what we're doing follows these principles and we stay within this. Akwesasne Tourism respects, protects, and preserves our natural environment for 7 generations. We work with Akwesasne on tourism development that strengthens our quality of life, language, culture, and heritage. As tourism hosts, we continually improve the guest experience, and we work together effectively and respect individual endeavors. So foundational planning is part of what my role in the project is. So these are the foundational documents, the foundational plans, how to get this started, how to do it properly. The things we have completed to date are an interpretive plan. So this plan looked at who are we sharing this with, what are we talking about, where is this going to be located. It kind of looked at those questions generally and put it out there to the community, put it out to our working group and said, are we going in the right direction with this? So it kind of laid out a little bit better direction into where we were headed. We also did a quick historical research report. So what that did, we hired a local historian. He touched on some subjects for us, gave us quick 1-page reports on those areas so that we kind of had something as a basis moving forward, and our working group could look at and say, okay, this is going to be sort of our basis moving forward on some of these subjects. A marketing strategy, so how do we get this out there? Who are we targeting, making the most use of our money? And part of that is also how do we continue making this sustainable? Our tourism brand book, so you'll see throughout this presentation a bunch of little glyphs, the colors that have been selected. So that was part of all that, branding us, making us different from everything else that's out there. Our direct competition would probably be Mohawk with their tourism. So why would people choose coming here as to going there? Our tourism basic infrastructure plan. So this really started to narrow down for us, where are we taking tourists? Where are we not taking tourists? Looking at that type of traffic, events. Again, with this tourism, we don't want to be Disneyland. We don't want to be bringing in 100,000 people or on a daily basis. we're focusing on small groups, 8 to 10, and a higher price tag would come along with that. So making sure that these are really good experiences, lower numbers, and that they're sustainable. So that plan touches on that. It also starts looking at how do you start to unify Akwesasne. So whether you come in through Cornwall, or you come in through Messina, or Fort Covington Way, you know you're in Akwesasne. How do we start having some uniformity, whether it's signage, banners, taking some pride in who we are here, and when people pass through, they're like, I'm in Akwesasne, and starting to recognize places that have some sort of branding or identification with tourism, where tourists are like, oh, this is a safe place for me to come, or a place where I'm wanted. And as from other presentations, we don't have them driving down somebody's driveway. Our DMMO business plan and board development is something that we are currently working on. So the DMMO is a destination marketing and management organization. It's in tourism, basically a fancy name for the business that will oversee this. So eventually there will hopefully be a business that oversees tourism. And that business that we're trying to create looks at one Akwesasne. It doesn't look at the Ontario, the Quebec, or the US portion. It's a business that will do tourism for all of Akwesasne. So that plan has taken a while. It takes some deep discussions. It takes some leadership to start working together and making some decisions on how can we move this forward and keep the major players involved and interested. And again, we looked at board development for that and creating a board that would help to govern that. Group tour development is also underway. We need more community members who are interested in being a part of this, to develop businesses, to work with us. We're here right now to help you with all of this training and going through kind of some of the bumps and things along with us to figure this out and getting this started. So that's part of our group tour development, is what are we going to offer here, what are we going to share, how are we going to do that, and what's going to be required, because we're hoping to sell this, to the world. So those businesses need to be trained in all of that and be ready for that. Cultural guidelines. The cultural guidelines and the tourism HR strategy are things that we haven't really started yet, but we know we need to. And now we're getting a really clear idea of we are currently 2.5 years into this project, so we're halfway. In September, we'll be starting our 3rd year. And we're starting to really see now clearly what those need to be and what they need to cover. So the cultural guidelines will be, what do we share? How much of it do we share? Who do we share it with? Within our working group, we've kind of decided anything that we put into print on paper is things that can go into anyone's hands. So if we don't have that type of support to put that out there, then we simply don't even touch it or put it on paper. We work closely right now with the Mohawk Nation Council of Chiefs. They're our cultural consultants. So we vet everything through the whole working group, but some things we'll really pay attention to them and say, is this okay to put out there? What are your feelings on this? Is something missing? Is something not right? And again, the HR strategy, we're seeing that a lot now with some of our major partners. And it's, what do you do when there's staff turnover? What do you do when one person's been running the place for 27 years and retires and doesn't know the passwords anymore, and everything has to start all over? So developing plans for these places and having that strategy in place and having kind of guidelines as to how you keep this going and moving forward. Again, I just wanted to go over, this is our brand. This is what has come forward. This is a little snippet from our future website, which is almost designed. We still need some pictures and video to go in it. Through the brand, active exploration and discovery of our cultural heritage and living languages, genuine connections to Akwesasne stories, meaningful introductions to art and real practicing artists, deep connections to the past, transcending time into the modern way of life, our natural world's foundation of our stories, our art, and travelers and experiences. So through the branding and marketing we've done, what we've discovered that's unique about Akwesasne and different from these other places is us, the people and the artisans. So the experts that I brought in, that are tourism experts that came here and helped to develop all these plans, they were like in awe by meeting, you know, the basket makers, the painters, by meeting the fishing tour guide, and not really so much about the fishing tour, but possibly the tour guide. You know, and that's what made it a unique experience for them, was the people. And being in small groups, which is what we're targeting, we have that opportunity for people to make this connection and really feel something special here. So our branding and marketing has focused a lot on our artisans. And those are the people who are passionate about what they do, and they want to move it into a business and kind of, you know, quit their regular day job and be a beater 24 hours, 24/7 a day, and be able to make a living off of that. And I mean, I don't foresee us making people millionaires, but hopefully sustaining them, being able to have a comfortable life moving forward, doing something we truly love. And through that, with cultural tourism, we learn our own culture, right? Because you can't share it without knowing it. So authenticity is also a big part of what we look at. Our next slide will just show, this is our logo, 2 t-shirts. But this is heavily debated, what we came down within the working group for our logo. We call him Little Dude. So it's kind of a Mohawk man distinguished by the 3 feathers up, and he's speaking and welcoming people to come. Back in 2008, there was a campaign for tourism called Sharing the Spirit. I think it was kind of internal within the community to get excitement and to find out if we wanted to pursue tourism here. Through all of this branding and everything, we came back to Sharing the Spirit as our main tagline. So we just added the Mohawk to keep it distinguished to Mohawk. So our tagline is Sharing the Mohawk Spirit. And that's our brand. Again, I just want to touch on the DMMO, or the Destination Marketing and Management Organization, the overall business. So it will aim to deliver on the destination's brand promise. So it'll help keep that vision of the ATSAP and the mission within the DMMO intact. Marketing and sustainable tourism development program. So it'll continue to help our community to improve this process and what we're trying to do here. Its vision is to support Akwesasne's natural and cultural resilience through a thriving tourism industry. The brand promise is to experience general connections to nature and culture through art. So this business's role in the future is to market Akwesasne. So again, that'll help some of our individual businesses not have to worry about doing that marketing. Hopefully this will feed you, you know, in my hopes and dreams, it'll feed you 90%, if, you know, around there of the people coming into your business. Product development, so it'll continuously be there to help develop these products, compete with the world, what else is out there, are you on par, can you be better, and quality assurance, so that's kind of more for the tourist. The tourist coming in is getting what they paid for. Can you improve upon it and make it better, and maybe charge more for it? So getting that information back from the tourist, making sure that where you're going is safe and has all the accommodations that they need, whether they're, you know, special needs and so on and so forth. So that's the DMMO. I'm going to now introduce you to Latoya Rourke, who is our tourism business incubator manager.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Latoya Rourke, tourism business incubator manager. A lot of you may have known me from experience Akwesasne Welcome Center. I did a 2-year term as tourism coordinator, and my role that I do today is a continuation of what I started over there and what we started with MCA. So it's great to stay in this field. I actually graduated from UIL in hospitality and tourism management, and then from there I went to Potsdam and just continued with tourism and kept with it. So our incubator program we developed, we didn't really have a plan of how it should be done. It was just through trial and error. What I've seen in the past with the Welcome Center, a lot of businesses didn't have marketing material, we didn't have business cards, we didn't have rack cards. It was a great initiative, a great plan, but our businesses just weren't ready for that. So that was one of the things I wanted to put forward with this incubator program, is to get businesses ready, to get them market ready, just to be able to showcase their talent. So this program we've developed has pre-incubation, we have cultural tourism, general tourism, business, and we also have artist vendor. In our program, as of December 2018, we have 88 clients in our program. We're only supposed to have 3 to 4, but we have 88, and a majority of those clients are all artists. We have 66 of those clients are artist vendors. Those are the artists that just want to be a vendor. They want the vendor opportunity. They want to be able to sell on markets, sell online. They kind of hesitant to take that leap to a business. So that's what the incubators program, the role is to assist them. So it's to do one-on-one consultation. We set up with them one-on-one intakes. We assess their business and we see where they're at. So we figure out, okay, where do you need assistance? What can we help you with? Whether it be a business plan, financials, financial projections, marketing, branded, marketing material. We do all of that. We have Michelle Collins is a one-on-one business advisor. She comes in twice a week to meet with clients. I do initial intakes. There's a whole process we put them through. And the great thing about this program is that it doesn't matter if they reside in the U.S. or if they reside in Toronto, Illinois, just knowing that they allow everybody into the program. When it gets into the financial, then we meet with MCA's economic development and say, okay, we have this client that has developed and worked with us. We have a business plan. Now they're at the point where they're seeking financial assistance. And I'm familiar from being with economic development, I'm familiar with the streams of funding and programs that we have. So it's a good partnership that we have. I reach out to Kylie and Noah and Noah is on. I reach out to them and let them know we have this client and we set up an appointment. And in the past, we've actually had them come to meet with clients in our office. We have workstations. We're expanding the workstations so they have access to computers, materials, any type of training that a business seeks. We'll look for the trainer. We'll look for the trainer and bring them in. And we're finding that it's all the same areas, so we can get a good group in right away. We currently are doing, in June, we're doing a certified interpretive guide training. So there'll be it's a 4-day training, and they'll actually be certified. So previously, last year, we did an intro course. So it was a whole day course of what this 4-day entails, so they can feel it out if they want to do it or not. And when we open that, and we're paying for the whole thing for that, the registration and everything, and to become certified. We offer it first to our clients that we have, and our clients are growing already from last year, and I want to keep letting it grow. I didn't put a limit, so it's just where I'm getting at is like, okay, we know this is a big need. We have to continue this program even after the 5 years. Workshops that we had entrepreneur workshops, different how to sell your product, how to price your product. In the beginning, a lot of our clients were just artists, so a lot of our workshops catered to the artists' needs, and that was all done through intake and assessment. Networking, we do a lot of networking with other tribal programs, MCA programs. We just recently met with Cannon, him and David. He works with Parks Canada. So we've made that partnership with him and just different opportunities that they offer, because they actually have, Parks Canada has a lot of the certified interpretive guides. So that was a partnership that they can continue to, once we go through this stream and hopefully the word gets out that we are looking for tour guides. That's like one big thing. So if you know anybody that's interested in that field, to be, set up an appointment with us, a one-on-one, because we have the pre-incubation program. that's welcome to anybody that's just in the idea phase, and it's just something they touched on, but they're not really sure. And we just kind of take all the pressure off of them and just invite them in and like, just tell us what you want, what's your goal, and then from there, we put a strategic plan on how to reach those goals and how to give them that training.
So it doesn't have to be all culturally connected, right?
Oh.
You'll help them get through the
Yeah,
stages.
at first we thought that because I'm a cultural tourism business incubator, our focus was culture, but there was such a need for it that I said we're not going to limit, and there was no rules on how we could set this incubator program up. So we did pre-incubation, cultural tourism, general business. Could be tourism. We've got so many sectors. There's 8 sectors, and there's so many sectors under each of those 8 that any like a gas station fits under, a car garage fits under. So it's all the essentials that a tourist would need if they were traveling here and their vehicle broke down. So we didn't put limitations on it. We also have Ed Smoke, and he works within our economic development office. So if it's I sit with them as long as I can, but when my workload gets, I bring them in, and we're both in there, so it's just a matter of how the intake process. But if they prefer me to sit in with them, I always sit in there. But it doesn't have to be this part. Yeah, just cultural side. Artisan Showcase. So last year, a lot of the feedback that we got was there's not enough events for us to start our craft or do our art as a full-time business. So we met with the Wild Center, the Adirondack Museum, and they were saying how they wanted our artists to go out there and they wanted to purchase their goods and their products, but they weren't going about it the right way, and they wanted like wholesale prices. So we had to educate them on the fact that you can't get 10 baskets for $25 for $175 just because you're buying 10 of them. That's not, it's the time. You can't make a lawyer get his rates, so why would you make basket maker? So it was like teaching them and educating them on the time it takes for these artists to do their work and that they should be treated equally. So that Artisan Showcase, between 8 and 10 in the morning, the Wild Center in Blue Mountain came in and had a one-on-one meet and greet with each artist. And that weekend, they brought in there was 26 artists, and they brought altogether, it was roughly over 8,000 in retail that they sold through that one day. So we're doing that again. I'll be sending out flyers, and I'll share it with Ashley at Communications and let everyone know. And in order to be an artist vendor, it's just a matter of coming in and giving your contact information, and then you get put on our list. So if you don't want the services, you can still be on just as a vendor, and whenever there's opportunity like this, you will get first dibs at it before it goes out to the community. Different events. An event that we partnered with was, I don't know if you've heard of the Mohawk and Abenaki Art Market. That was out in Blue Mountain, and they did their first year market out there. It was a juried art show. So the services that we provide within the incubator program is we assisted uploading their juried applications. So a lot of artists are like, I've never did a juried show, I don't know the process, I don't know if my photography is okay. So I said, well, come on, I'll grab my camera, we'll see if the photos you can take off of your phone would be, just as close to being professional. Let's see what we can do. So last year we got in, I want to say 21, 24 artists into it, and they all got into the show, and the prizes were really good. I don't know how much we might have brought in, maybe 14,000, 15,000, something like that. This year they're having it. I got asked to be on the board this year, and my goal, I hope they don't mind, but I'm going there to take as much as I can, to take in what I can, because I feel that why should our artists have to go all the way out there when they can have right here? The travel and the cost of the hotels, the price to get in, the registration, and it's something that I want to build here. So this Artisan Showcase is how I'm building it. So So this year, we're gonna be having it at Generations Park under the lacrosse pavilion. And my goal is to have over at least 40, because we had 26, so I wanna have at least 40 vendors, and then I like to add in traditional music, traditional food, so keep building off of that, so then it ends up turning into our own market here. So with that Mohawk and Abenaki art market, the applications are out now, and if you know anybody that's interested, I will assist them with their applications, with their photography, with uploading it. I kind of tell them that utilize the resource, or utilize the incubator program as a hub of resources. So if you're questioning another market, I can get in contact with them and do all that work for you and answer those questions. So I'm kind of like the middle person for them. Another one that we worked with, and it's new this year, we promoted it last year, but this year we're working with them more, is the Akwesasne art market. It's in Athens, in Victor, New York. Yeah, so I'm working with them, doing the same thing, giving out applications, assisting with the applications, just anything like that. Like, if you ever need any assistance, if I can't do it, I'll find someone that can help with the application or anything that you need.
Who assist them with the tax issue if they have to take their products off the reservation? They've been forced to collect taxes. Who assists them with that?
So these like Wild Center, Blue Mountain, they were all being told that in order, and I think they're following other markets because the Santa Fe market does that. The Santa Fe market makes you get Albuquerque state tax ID number to be in their market. So I think they're just copying what other markets are doing. And actually we found out that I'm setting up a presentation with Barbara Montour. I want to work with her because there's actually stated saying that any arts native made isn't subject to New York State tax. So I'm trying to get that in writing, and I want to be able to pass that out to our artists, but I want her to do it in full session with our artists to give them that information, because not to like discriminate against anyone that comes in that's not hungry. A lot of them, they just follow what they're taught, and they just don't know the laws and the rules, and we don't, we have limited to ask. Like, I didn't know that either. I thought they were, from what you find online and what you read, it says anything you take off reserve is subject to tax. But I guess it has to do with, I can't think of it right now, but there's a law, art law that says that anything native made, produced, craft, or good is not subject to tax. So it's just getting that documented and being able to issue that.
But last year, with the Blue Mountain Market, what they did was they sold it through their gift shop.
Yeah.
Well,
So I working with Blue Mountain, I said, well, that was another reason why we had the artisan showcase, because if our artists went out there and sold, Wild Center was going to charge the tax on their products. And I said, well, then you should have to come here and buy it, because they're not going to put the tax on these products. So they did. And then Mohawk and Abenaki Art Market, the same thing. I said, we don't have this. A lot of artists and a lot of our people don't want to be tax collectors from New York State. So I said, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're maybe going to have Abenakis that you're showing, not Mohawks, because I don't know who's going to do this. I said, it's a lot to be asking, and you have to report every year, quarterly actually. And they said, well, this is how we're going to do it. Everything that gets purchased will go through the gift shop. So they took the fall for the taxes, not the artists. So that came out of that was on their end. So the artists weren't taxed. So that was one way around it. And I'm trying to get this document in place beforehand, but they're doing it the same way this year too. So they made an exception. The Akwesasne, I didn't see anything on there about New York State tax on their application, so I think that might be okay.
Where's theirs now?
Victor, New York.
That's off reserve.
It's again.
But it's off reserve, Victor, New York.
That's what, I think that's where it's by, but I'm not sure if it's off reserve.
It is.
But so far, I haven't had any tax issues or questions with their application yet. I think what is our next thing? Yeah, opportunities that we have in cultural tourism. So the opportunities is we're looking for tour guides, even workshop development. So if you're a basket maker and we're looking for demonstrations, not necessarily you teaching, a group of 10, we're looking for a lot of demonstrations. We do an activity now that it's a fillable, a sheet you fill out with a workshop description, our title, workshop description, and building that into proposal templates. So we want to be able to distribute throughout St. Mount Tribe and Mohawk and different demonstrations and workshops that are available. I know a lot of programs like the Three Sisters program, traditional medicines, like they do a lot of workshops, so we want to be able to get our artists to commit more to creating these workshop templates so all the information is there and it's easier for hiring processes. Akwesasne gift shop is a big thing that we need with the limited space in both sides of Akwesasne, that there's no storefront. There's, with the pastry, a lot of people are limited because, they get worried about the toll booth and all that. And we really need to either move the toll booth or we need to find somewhere on the American side to house these gift shops because that's a big thing. We have one business that's Indigenous World. She's making an online marketplace, and we also work with her through the incubator program on getting these artists. She should be launching within a few weeks, and that's an online. Anyone's familiar with the Etsy website? This Indigenous World website is the same caliber as the Etsy website. Informational kiosk. I don't remember if Kenny had mentioned, but with not having the Welcome Center, we see that there's a need for a lot of information to be distributed, like rack cards, business cards, events. The Akwesasne Museum and Cultural Center, they had, I think Gail might go into it, they did some expansions, and there was a opportunity to make it an informational kiosk. And also future partnerships would be like with the casino, maybe even get one at BMO. They kind of have that little wall in there with all their business cards, so expanding on stuff like that. Tourism infrastructure, just again, the buildings and the space for these artists to set up. We even reach out to schools and education. We went to a couple of classes in Cornwall. It was a native studies class, I think. And we presented to them, and we're trying to get the youth to understand that. I know a lot of the older artists feel that, well, I wasn't taught to just focus on my art as a business. I was told I have to go to school, I got to go to university, I have to go to college, and I have to become this. So we're letting the youth know that if you're passionate and if you really want to make baskets your entire life, and that's what you want your business to be, and that's what you want to be sustainable off of, then you can do that. It's okay. We have the programming, and hopefully we continue this in the future. But right now, we're halfway through this 5 years. This is the opportunity. If you know anybody that's interested, now is the time to get into the program because we have the funds to give you the training that you need, and hopefully it's something that we can continue. Economic development growth in Akwesasne. Again, it's a program and workshop education. I think I might have said everything out of order. If there's any questions,
what are the tax implications for the business owners? You're talking about gift shops, and I know they have tribe. If they're going to be hiring people, they take taxes out of their tribal employees there, right?
I know tribal employees, yeah.
And so what do they have over there to
help the business person to deal with New York State when they're gonna come and want their tax dollar.
Like for federal and New York State, like income tax. That's something we'll probably have to address with the DMMO and even our HR strategy. That HR strategy would be something that we would have to look into. Right now, we're not there yet, but we are getting into it because we were supposed to develop this HR strategy in year one, but we didn't know what we were going to be faced with in our first year. So as we're going, we're figuring out what we need to address more, and we'll be getting consultants hired on to assist with those.
And we'll be looking at what our current businesses do. Also with that is the tourists that are visiting it. So if they're purchasing so many items while they're here, whether it's in the US portion or the Canadian portion, and they're going back to Canada or vice versa, how do they deal with passing through with those goods? So there's still a lot of discussions we're doing with the taxation issue is a huge one, as well as that issue. How are tourists who are spending money here and purchasing things carrying that through the borders? How are they dealing with the borders while they're visiting us? Are we going to have to report every time they go from one place to the other and so on? So the HR strategy is going to look further into that. As for an existing business right now, on the tribal side, our economic development services can help further with that.
Additional to the incubator program, the incubator program is the training and the resources and the education on operating a business, but there's also another component that we're looking at now is that it's not only the educational part, we need the market readiness part where it's like, what type of insurance should your business carry? So we have previously brought in J&J, Jerry Stone from J&J Insurance to give quotes and advice on types of insurances that they should carry. Whether their facility is fit for if there was a fire or natural disaster, they work with emergency measures, the tribe's emergency measures. So there's, on top of the incubator program, when they get all of that they need through their assessment and all the training that they need, there's an additional component for the incubator program. And it's questions like that, like working with an accountant, working with legal, like setting up their business structure, and how they're going to do their hiring process. So there's an additional component. I'm sorry to mention that, but I think we figured that out before I had did this slide.
All right, was there more slides that we were going to go through? We're going to have to, we have about 5 more minutes, and then we're going to have to move along. My apologies for that.
I'll go with it.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay, I guess just simply, I have the wonderful job of trying to develop the Heritage Complex and our park facilities, which support cultural tourism. It's a component that actually looks at developing some of the capital that will be required in the community. Heritage Complex, just quickly, would be developing a new library, museum, archive facility, and a welcome center. Right now, the work that we're doing is we've been developing, is trying to identify various sites in the community that would be most appropriate for the Heritage Complex. A lot of people, really have given us feedback for a number of years through the previous studies. A lot of people really want to see it on 37. We've looked at different areas, and there's almost 5 million cars travel by there every year on 37. So as a location, it's a great location for the visiting public, as well as kind of central to Akwesasne. The Heritage Complex is in developing that element. The biggest job I've had, again, is developing, looking at site location. The other part is really trying to find money. In our grant, we've got money for salaries for ourselves, but not a lot of dollars to actually develop, design, and plan these facilities. So I think over the past 2 years, I've done about 17 different proposals to try to find money. It's hard to get for capital. But anyway, I think we're making headway. We've been very fortunate to get little pockets of money here and there to start really identifying what are the space requirements in the Heritage Complex. When we say complex, it's not going to be potentially not going to be one facility. It could be a campus of facilities. It could be a combination of museum and archives. So there's a lot of work that we're going to be doing this summer to move on that. The art park is, we're looking, the tribe has designated site, the old former Hogansburg Power Dam. That's been designated for cultural tourism. We've just had a technical assessment of the building to see if it could accommodate an art gallery or a pavilion for our artisans, and it could also be a welcome center. It's a beautiful building. The technical assessment proved that it's a very viable and it's a very structurally sound facility. It's almost 100 years old. It's got a lot of history. It's a very beautiful building, and it has been set aside for us for cultural tourism as well as the park space across the river. So we're doing work and be fixing up that area with some landscaping and things like that. We're doing a lot of work with the museum to help them improve as a venue. As you're aware, the museum is in the basement of a library. Not the best facility for a museum, for climate control, for storage, for everything else that goes with a museum. And that's one of the reasons why it's really important to get a new cultural center and museum in the community. Again, we look at it as Akwesasne as one. It's not just on the American side of things, southern side. So we've been doing a lot of work with them, and we've done some renovations right now in the museum, and we'll be having a grand reopening this summer. It's going to be quite nice. It's an improvement. It's not the best, but it's an improvement. The space is still the same square footage, except they have their own entrance now, which is really nice, and it's handicap accessible, so that's going to be a great improvement. Doing a lot of partnerships, really trying to branch out and get new partnerships and working with groups outside the area of Akwesasne so that we can garner support to build and our facilities that we need. So just not much more. Some of the work that we're trying to do is I've been calling it downtown Akwesasne because it does kind of support some of the infrastructure and the marketing and the tourism and the improvements that we want to see in the community so that our community is identifiable and it's welcoming. And we can start to feel really good about our community again and taking things back. So we've done a little bit of landscaping planning for there's a green park space that used to house the old Pittsburgh fire department, and now it used to have our planning and infrastructure facility there, which has been taken away, and now it's a nice green space waiting to be developed. Yeah, so I think that's about it on that. So again, the Heritage Complex is a new library, museum, archive facility, welcome center. Depending on the site that gets selected, we want to develop also ecotourism and walking trails and to again regain our waters with kayaking and canoeing and I don't know about fishing anymore, but
What sites are you looking at to build that?
there's been a couple that have been identified. Again, kind of look at what people have suggested on 37. So there was a site that's on the west side of Akwesasne just before Twinley. There's 46 acres there. And that's a property that we were looking at as an ideal location. Clean.
Is that the Racer Trust
Yes.
Superfund site?
Yes, part of that. But there has been environmental assessments done there. There's more that has to happen once we gain control of the property if we're fortunate enough to get that. But it is quite a nice site.
You gonna work there?
Yeah.
Are you?
Of course, absolutely.
You better get your blood
Well, I don't know,
drawn.
I may not be
Monitor
yourself.
You're gonna cap it.
No, actually, the site there were a couple identified, they call them RECs, Recognized Environmental Concerns, but those are easily remediated. And we work with the Tribal Environment Department as well. So there is more testing that has to be done, particularly along the waterway. If we did want to put some kayaking kind of business in there.
Yeah, because it's leaching all from underneath that big mound.
This is the other side.
Yeah, it's not the northern side, this is the southern side.
Well, you better check that, because
Oh,
that's
yeah,
like
we
part of the
will.
Superfund.
For sure. It's something that I wouldn't even consider if I thought it was in hazard, for sure. And that site actually has no development on it. The other ones we're looking at, of course, the tribe just bought some recent property, 240 acres. There's a potential, there's been some master planning done, but it's very preliminary, so there's a possibility there, as well as the tribe has additional acreage around the old former IGA. So there's a couple spots that might be good, and it's convenient enough off 37.
Where's the 240 acres?
That's where the Stoma gas station is, and then up towards the fire department.
Oh,
In the
okay,
back, in the back.
yeah. They're clearing out all the pine trees?
Yeah, they're doing some work there now.
All right, there was a question over here.
I was just gonna make a comment when you got to that previous slide about, when you mentioned, you keep mentioning, on the previous slide. It's the one before. The slide before. Yeah, so your heritage complex and your museum and cultural center. If you find the funds for the heritage complex, the museum and cultural center disappears. It closes down.
I think the library board owns the building there that currently has that, and I think what they would probably be interested in, although there's been no discussion, is they would probably sell that property and invest that into a new library.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the heritage complex, when you said we're having trouble finding funding or whatever, my comment was gonna be, whoever your northern counterpart is that's working with you on this, there's, at some point, and this is just food for thought to follow it, if the Indian Day School settlement goes through with a $200 million investment of commemoration, wellness / healing, and the restoration and preservation of indigenous languages and cultures, to follow what could be available for those funds to possibly look at as a resource, without throwing a border in there. You know what I mean? Because 3/4 of the people that went to school in these schools on the northern side probably are traversing every day or living on the other side, the southern side too. So, but it's just food for thought.
Yeah, for sure.
This, I think, might be the next presentation, so I don't know if you're aware of it all, but
That's great.
there's something in there about money.
Excellent. Because one of the things, of course, with the museum and the heritage center is, it's who we are as a people. What our history is, our culture, our languages, our artifacts, everything that we are, and we want people to learn as well as our own people to learn from that. So it'll be a real beautiful facility that many other tribal or First Nations communities have, and we should have it too. That's it.
I'm going to read quick, it's just quick comments. So just going over again what we call our major stakeholders, our major partners who work with us in the working group. They've been there since the beginning. Again, we look at Akwesasne as one, so we're trying to make sure we include everybody. Thompson Island, which is an island. It's classified in Quebec right now. If you have never been there, I highly recommend that you visit Thompson Island. This is my favorite place. It's our hidden jewel here in Akwesasne. It's beautiful. It is developed for this community to help educate our youth. That was the whole intentional purpose of it 21 years ago. We're trying to help sustain it by developing a small portion open to tourism. And it has so much potential. So much potential. It's beautiful. Next slide is Native North American Traveling College. They're a major partner, developing their tourism part of it to help sustain the other parts of it. Again, so these four are who we're kind of concentrating right now on helping develop and really get group tours started there. The next slide is St. Regis Church. So again, not just the church, but also the point in Ganadago has so much history for our people and Akwesasne. So developing tours through there, and talking a lot about who we are as a people, and again, generating some funds for the church through this process. And our last one is the Akwesasne Museum and Cultural Center, which is also the heritage complex. Part of the renovations that's going on there, Gail really helped through this process to get them, a facelift so that they can get up and running right now and not have to wait for the shovel to go into the ground for the new heritage complex. Last two slides are just our community engagement projects that we've been working on since we started. So every year we've been trying to launch a new project within the community to get excitement about what we're doing, to get to you guys and say, hey, you could, have a job off of this. So the first year was Watelet Goa, or our big basket. So we kick them off every year at the powwow, which is our largest tourist event. So the big basket right now is got a home at the new tribal building. So I tell her she's in there in a nice case. You can come and visit her. So that was year one. We had 26 basket makers involved in that. This year's project, there's flyers on the table. If you're interested, grab them.
The next slide is Yuwat Jijayanto, or we planted a flower garden, focusing on our beaders and our beadwork. We have 2 flower making courses coming up for those who want to make one and put it on here and be a part of this project. The first one is kicking off next week with 2 sessions with Marlena Thompson. Sorry, they're full, but we did get funded by MCA's ECDEV to host another one in St. Regis with Laura Thompson, so we do have openings in that one. We're taking 15 people. So and if you are a beader and you want to make a flower and come and add it on this, there's a schedule of where we'll be to make it more convenient, or just stop in and visit us at. The next slide is where our office is located, how to contact us. If you have any interest in cultural tourism, if you have any feedback for us on what we could be doing more of, what we can share, what we shouldn't share, any concerns, please email us if we don't get a chance to answer all the questions.
No, we have one here.
Just a comment real quick. Veterans are our culture, or part of our culture and our history. So I'm working on a project right now that's going to take place at the casino on May 14th. But through your process here of museums and things like that, I hope that the veterans don't get left out, because we have a lot of veterans, and our history shows 1,200 from Akwesasne alone, from the Civil War to today, over 1,200. And I don't know how many are alive still, but we're trying to now document who is alive from the Charlie Jacobs, the Korean War and the World War II, who's left, and then Levi, obviously, that we're trying to get a film documentary going to it, that it would be, to work with you guys to help us in that area. So I'm working with the Legion right now, and Andy Cook, he's a veteran, I'm not sure which ward he served in, which part, but I'm working with him. So on May 14th, there's a big event happening at the casino.
And definitely, if you have a group or an organization doing that, please let us know and invite us to these things, because we can, we've been kind of doing this now for a little bit and being able to look at things like that from a different angle. The consultants that I brought here, I talked about code talkers, and you have code talkers, and meeting these veterans, that's a tour. Bringing somebody into some place to have a meal and speak with our veterans is a tour.
And just on a final note, on the Canadian side now, at Fort Wellington, I'm working on a project with them, and they are so interested in our code talkers that they're going to do a series up there with our veteran code talkers up there on the Canadian portion now.
And then I also suggest when the museum talks get going, to be involved in those when you see anything coming out, to make sure there's a section in that museum that's focusing on that.
And then there's one other project on the Vietnam veterans that is happening in Quebec, that they want to showcase our 5 killed in action Mohawk Vietnam veterans in Quebec.
Thank you, Karen.
I currently work at a Native American Travel College, and yes, we are part of the cultural tourism network right now. Well, one thing that I really get concerned about is when I hear the interpretive center, and I don't really feel that there will be a role for the travel college. And we've been having, the travel college has now had the cultural center for 45 years, and it has a strong museum component. And so I just kind of feel that, that it seems like the focus is going on the tribal MCA interpretive center. But I want to begin to remind everybody that the travel college has been there for quite a number of years, and I think that they also have a role in the museum portion of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Just wondering if you're going to share that basket with MCA there.
We actually met with the chiefs last week, and I told them it's traveling. Right now it's in the tribal building. The casino wants it for a bit, and I said, if you have a place for it, let us know, and we'll arrange dates of when it can move. It can, I'm hoping the traveling college eventually sets something up so that it's there for a bit. So it's definitely, it takes a little bit to move it, because Gail bought an enormous, beautiful case for it. It's in a glass case that's as big as I am, and about 4 feet by 4 feet. But it's definitely available. And again, our partnerships with the working group, we've always got that out there. We did have flyers with a schedule on it, but the schedule kind of got thrown all over the place.
All right, one more, and then we have to move on.
As part of the working group, I just want to reinforce that there is a niche for it right now, because just at the traffic college this past week, last week, we had a group from Sweden come in, we had a group from Switzerland come in. This week, we've had a group of Russians come in, and today we had a group of Iranians come in. So if it's a concerted effort, you know, it's going to benefit Mohawk.
We're not worried about the people coming in. We're worried about making sure we're ready for it and that our people are prepared for all of that. That we're not getting, you know, I don't like to say it that way, but our businesses in this have to operate like a business off the reserve because that's what you could face. You know, the scary side of it is we're bringing outside people in for a little bit, so you need to be prepared for that, and that's how this all comes together. You know, we're toiling goal, making sure people are market ready, know what to expect, know how to deal with the feedback, you know, whether it's positive or negative, and how to improve and keep getting people to come back to you and making that higher price tag is what we're shooting for.
All right, thank you very much, Penny, Latoya, Diane, and James. My apologies. I verified with her.
He knows I'm bad at names.
All right, so we're going to move on. Thank you very much to our presenters from the Cultural Tourism Strategy. There's more information can be found on their website as well, and they provided the information how to contact them. So we thought it was valuable information to share with you, provide an update. As was mentioned, they had presented about 2 years ago at a MCA General Meeting when this initiative had began. We're thankful that we're able to support them in whichever way that we can in the important work they're doing. So. All right, so we're going to move along. We just have a couple updates that we want to give to the community. If you were at the last general meeting, it was raised some questions around the Indian Day School class action lawsuit that had been filed in Canada against the government of Canada and has resulted in a proposed settlement between former students of day schools as well with the have taken the government of Canada to court, and there is now a proposed settlement. There will be an information session next Monday, April 29th, at the St. Regis Recreation Center, so in Ganadago, with the lawyers from Gallings who are representing the parties suing the government of Canada. They will be providing a presentation to you, so we encourage you to attend. In your packages, there is a bit of additional information in there. In the back, there's some additional information. We have included in your packages, some information that was shared with us from another law firm outlining concerns that they have with the proposal. So this class action lawsuit is ultimately individually driven, so members of the community who are interested in it, who that feel that they meet the criteria for compensation for what may have happened to them during a certain period of time while attending a school, unfortunately, in our community that was ran by the federal government at the time. So it's not, schools weren't run by the Mohawk Council or the St. Regis Council at the time. They were ran by the federal government, and class action lawsuit has been launched against them. So we want to make sure that we're sharing this information with you. We encourage you to read up on it as well if you're able to attend the session next week at the Ganadago Recreation Center. They will have lawyers there to answer the questions that you may have. So that's what we have to share this evening with you on that. We want to make sure that we're getting that out to you.
There's just a concern for the community members. At the same time, there's a scheduled election law.
Yeah, so we have been, the election law meeting that was supposed to schedule to occur next Monday is going to be rescheduled, so that people don't have to pick between one meeting or the other. Yes?
I specifically asked at that meeting if you could find out how our schools got on this list. Did you get any response from anybody on how our schools got on the list?
Well, it was because the federal government ran the schools on reserve,
So
and so the government, the operator and owner and operator of the school is the one that's responsible for the actions of the teachers and what happened to the children. So therefore, that's how the schools got on. It wasn't until election 1987 that we took over the control of our own schools. Prior to that, going backwards, the Indian Affairs ran the schools.
So with our school records, our Quebec school records are gone, and they've destroyed 55 years of school records last year from General Vanier, anybody that went to school in Cornwall Island West or East, going 55 years back as of last year by law, they had to destroy our school records. And our Quebec records never made it over there anyway. So anybody on the island, their records made it over there. So in my research into some of this stuff, from the 1940s, those records have all been destroyed because I was looking for my mother's records. So I went to CCBS. Since GB closed down, everything got transferred to CCBS. So are we going to have anybody there, I guess I'll say a community lawyer, that if we need to ask them anything, and you know what I mean? But they're bringing their lawyers in, they're bringing the lawyers in representing this case. Are we going to have a community council lawyer sitting there too?
There's something to consider, but I mean, the understanding though, the lawyers have been sitting there or for the plaintiffs, right?
Right.
People who have been damaged, right? That have received ill treatment by the government.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously they are advocating for, arguably you, if you were a student of that school. So bringing in another legal counsel to question another legal counsel is supposed to be working for you, I'm not sure. We can look at it, but we'll have to take it into consideration.
And the reason I'm asking this is because there was this big uproar in our community about the residential schools, and I remember council, some chiefs were pretty actively involved with residential school survivors and giving them guidance or helping them. And Chief Thompson mentioned, I think in Sny, that you're assisting or like looking in the 60s school. You're kind of following that type thing, right, as a chief. So that's the only reason why I'm putting it out there, that, you know, like who on council is going to follow it, as in he's going to 60s school. I remember Chief Toby Mitchell here said she was aware of a little bit, but is anybody on council going to be a follower to it, like?
Yeah, Chief Carolyn Francis and I hold the AMPI, our education portfolio, and we both step forward and will be present at the meeting next week. So.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions on this information? Yes.
Oh, not a question, just more of a statement. So I'm not sure if it's included in the agendas, but the website to get all the information is indiandayschools.com. So that has everything from the FAQ, so talking about the history of the settlement. You can get, I think, biographies on some of the lawyers even, and more information about the schedule, because I know there was some confusion about deadlines. So just to make sure that you guys all have access to that, it's there on the web.
All right, thank you very
How
much.
many lawyers are coming?
I believe 2. Yeah, from Gowlings, it's from Ottawa.
From the Winnipeg office, right? That's
One's from the Ottawa office.
Oh, Ottawa?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to also add in that we're going to be there recording the session, and we'll have that posted as well, so people can review it on our YouTube channel afterwards.
Yes.
When the time comes for like people to get compensated, is it gonna go right directly, like say, to us, for example? Because one of the members from the actual residential, when they were taken away and stuff, when they got compensated, they said Mohawk Council kept the money, so they're putting in programs.
No, that's not true. So Indian residential school survivors receive money directly, but as Cheryl had mentioned earlier, she mentioned earlier that part of the settlement includes money being identified for community programming. So in the Indian residential school, the same thing happened. Community program dollars were made available. The Mohawk Council had applied for some of that money and delivered programming to everybody, right? But so the residential school survivors received cash or check payments to them directly. In this case, they will as well. There will be, if accepted, other monies available that community groups, organizations, community governments can apply to deliver programming as well. Yeah. Yes.
And that's the same thing with the 60 school. The courts have awarded the amount, but they've also set aside, I believe it's 50 million or 80 million for endowments or monuments and stuff that you will be able to apply to once it gets settled.
Yes.
Just as for your information, with the Cornwall Island residents on the Ontario records, our archives department does have what is called the Ontario attendance records. So if you can't actually find your records, your school records or things like that, if it's going to be needed, a good place to start CCVS, you go in and you go into the library, you ask them to do a search, and then you can come back to the island, and those attendance records from Holmes Bruce Rumpoint in the 60s. Right. So we know there are records to back that far to his era that are at our own archives over here, because I remember seeing his name because I was looking for my mother's, right? And from 1947, there's only one page that sits in there. One page out of a big, like an attendance book, and then it goes into the Ontario attendance books and whatnot. So that's just for your information, whoever gets deeply involved into this, because of every classification of $10,000 compensation to 20 up to 200,000, there will be a process connected to it. And if you're involved in a class action suit, you're going to have to prove your claim. So there will be other things, and that session you're doing on Monday is going to be very important to know the steps and what you're going to have to get as your own evidence type stuff. Like I got lucky and found my Ontario record that listed all those teachers in St. Regis. Somehow it made it. It's not my official stuff, but I could identify the 2 teachers in there that were the abusers to my class, you know? So that's a piece of information that may help me down the road somewhere, but it's just for your information.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, that is on next Monday at the St. Regis Recreation, 6 p.m. The lawyers will be available, and as reported, we will be recording that, and that will be made available for those of you that can't attend the meeting itself. So. All right, so the other item that I just wanted to quickly share information with you on, and this is just informational, that there's a couple of handouts in there from, it's titled from the Chiefs of Ontario that talks about the federal budget, investing in middle class, and also the Ontario budget. So recently, both governments, Ontario and the federal government, announced what their budgets will be. So that budget will be over the next year. We wanted to just share some of the highlights with you, what that means and translates into the indigenous sector, and then a bit about how that may incorporate into the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne and the programs in which we do. So just quickly on the federal budget, it outlines there, one of the things that is a bit of a caveat on the federal budget and a lot of these initiatives is it is all contingent on the Liberal government being elected in October of 2019. So there's a federal election coming up, and that the feds have said they will spend this kind of money moving forward. So we just wanted to share that with you. That's some of the areas that may concern us, or not concern, but include us, is the education, post-secondary education increases. We have seen a number of increases over the last couple of years. Already in that, so they've committed to continuing to increase that. There's better information for better service. There's some surveying that they committed to do as well. We heard earlier from one of the presentations that there was a First Nations Inuit health study that was done. So they want to continue to do studies like that to be able to collect data on our community. As well, there's a talk here a bit about the First Nation services for First Nation children and youth. So the government is committed to making additional investments in there. They've also made investments already that we have been recipients of. The Indigenous Languages Act, which they've committed to continue to move that forward and make investments under that. And then continuing to support business development as that translates. So again, we just wanted to highlight this because you may have heard on the news the government has announced their budget and what that means for us. Again, it's contingent on them being re-elected. The other government that recently announced their budget is the Ontario Conservatives, which is headed under Rob Ford's government, who has tabled a bit of a smaller budget that has less included for communities across Ontario. And we provided that bit of a highlight. In fact, we are expecting that they have tabled a budget of spending, but they've also tabled in that budget a number of cuts. So we do anticipate that we may see some changes in the province of Ontario. We're not sure yet how that will affect us. One of the big areas that we're changing is the health. But having said that, a lot of the programming that Mohawk Council delivers on behalf of our partners and delivers services to you, a lot of it is funded by the federal government and not the provincial government. So health, our predominant partner is Health Canada versus the Ministry of Health for Ontario. education in our community is funded by the federal government as well. Social services is actually is funded partially, social services welfare is funded by the federal government as well. Child welfare is funded by the province of Ontario, so we think that there'll be some changes happening there in the next little while. So that's just the budget highlights that we wanted to share with you. It gives a bit of a more breakdown. If you have other questions, members of council can assist, or myself, in understanding what that means to us. So, any questions on any of that? Yes.
Mr. Doug Ford, he loves all the natives out there in the Toronto area. I'm reading it because you said Rob Ford, right? I'm like, he does.
Sorry.
It said Doug, right?
I verified that with Julie too.
But what are your immediate concerns though, as far as knowing that these cuts are probably going to impact the area? Like, what are you trying to be proactive to the areas that we may take hard hits on?
Well, a lot of it has just been talked thus far. There hasn't been any implementation. So I did have a breakfast meeting with the mayor this morning and talked to her about specifically around some of her concerns with the city. And they're still, even though they have a more relationship with the province than us, everybody's just wondering what it means, right? They said
you guys.
they have, yeah. So no, but they have said that there's cuts coming, and so we have heard it. We don't know what they mean, right? So there's no, they haven't rolled out what that means. How it's going to affect services, right? Again, a lot of our funding comes from the federal government, some comes from the province. So,
Because they already announced the midwives program for First Nations, right? Over the whole province.
yeah.
The midwives, are you jobs? Yeah. It was announced the other day.
So we will see. We'll see over the next little while what that translates into. Okay. All right. So we're going to move along. I thank you for indulging us to share that information. We will now move to business from the floor. So we will take any questions or comments that you may have for council. Yes.
I went to the district meeting last week. I don't think it's a meeting anymore. I had my share. But this whole cannabis issue is really getting a problem. And it bothered me right from the beginning. You know, whenever the arrests were made and then there was the outlaw and then they attacked the police and whatever else happened, but you know, no matter what, the underlying thing was that violence had occurred. So since then, I've just been kind of reading what's going on. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go to a general district meeting and find out what's going on. I want to find out about those recreational dispensaries. And then when I was there and just having a dialogue with some of the district chiefs, I did get a little bit upset and I made a comment, well, maybe this issue to have a community-wide vote on whether or not we want Akwesasne to even consider selling recreational marijuana. I think that the community itself really needs to be asked first. And we haven't been asked, you know, so I had made a threat, well, I'm going to start a petition. I don't want to start a petition. I really don't. You know, but I really want council to look at having the people at least state how they feel on the recreational cannabis. Because I don't think that we're ready for it. And the reason why I say it is because yesterday I had to go to the bank. And when I went to the bank, the store up here, they were smoking pot. I don't know, they were smoking something, you know, you make the assumption when you see a whole bunch of people smoking like this, that they're smoking pot. Well, from there I went to the bank. And when I was coming out of the bank, there's another group of young folks smoking in the parking lot. You know, so already this is indicating to me that it's going to be hard for anybody to regulate any type of recreational cannabis. So I'm just asking the council again to really reconsider, you know, like I could, and if there is a community vote, whatever the outcome is, I'll honor it.
Okay. Thank you very much for
If it
that.
goes on, there's going to be problems.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I mean, if this is allowed in Akwesasne, there's going to be problems. And we probably cops, stuff like that, because look, if you'll let a dispensary open in St. Regis, which I suggest, okay, hypothetically, don't let be dispensaries in St. Regis because the village is too small. Okay, and even like for Snide, because either way, it would be coming coming through the states and what, like somebody mentioned before, that they're gonna be a cop sitting there all the time saying, oh, what do you care? You know, that's gonna create problems.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Here in the back.
So, as far as the whole cannabis thing, yeah, it is a problem, having people smoking in front of the store. You know, there has to be laws on it, there has to be laws on the driving, there has to be laws on how you're exiting these stores. Now, the Akwesasne Cannabis Association is trying to put together these laws and regulations. We have a good outlet. And as far as the survey, they have done a survey community-wide saying that there was a push for recreational cannabis. Wasn't there a survey done?
It was an online survey.
It was
But-
not a lot of people participated in the survey.
Okay, well, most of the people in the survey that did do the survey voted yes. Now, as far as the cannabis regulations,
Well, why doesn't he,
That's my son.
I don't care if it's your son or not, he should be telling who he is. I don't know who he is.
Yeah,
Don't
no.
get defensive, Robert.
I'm
Please.
just telling him who he is.
Please be respectful. I've asked that you please address us, actually. because-
okay, all right, so as far as that, we do have regulations for smoking outside of stores. We don't want consumption in public places where there's parks, there's schools, you know what I mean? There is all kinds of regulations that we don't want people, we want people to come here to support an economy, but we do want to do it in a safe manner. As far as people, when they come in, they have an exit bag that they can buy their stuff, that we put the stuff in the exit bag, and if it's open when they leave, that's on them, and that would be on to the cops to do whatever it is that they do for tickets or citations. Now, with that being said, the Cannabis Association is also going to have a bunch of information sessions soon. May 7th will be our first one. We will have presentations and we will have all kinds of answers for whatever the community has. And as far as St. Regis and Sinai, we can see the problem with the border thing. But what the fact is, we don't have police sitting at the border right now with all these warehouses for cigarettes that sit right on the border. You know, they do their job outside of the res on both sides, so what would be the problem?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yes,
I still feel this wasn't a true survey. What you call it, what was his name there? That's his son, Louis. He went around and told us he was making a factory. What he told me was the marijuana was medical marijuana, not recreational. Nothing, none, never heard of recreational. So where did you get the idea that we wanted recreational? You went to the elders and asked them what they wanted, and they all said no. And that was for medical. Because also, another thing is they didn't quite understand, but I voted for medical, not for recreational. And I don't think and it's right here to our daycare. I don't understand why you are letting those stay open when you aren't ready. Are we going to start having, I don't know how to say it, remember the speakeasies we had years back? Well, we're going to have this with drinking and smoking. And are we going to put our young children in danger with this? Is it worth it? Just so you guys can make money? I don't think so. We've been taught to not take anything that would mix up our minds. And yet we go right behind that and we're letting it happen. I don't understand that, and I, for one, would like to have a herbicide or something, or whatever, and I'll go buy that myself. But I don't think it should be shoved down our throat. The people that got the thing there say they're a government to run that damn thing, they're not even from here. They don't live here, they're not in danger. We are. Wake up, do something. Close everything down until everything is straightened out.
Okay.
And I think
Thank
that's
you.
the dispensaries, there shouldn't be too many. You know, I'm not against it, it just shouldn't be too many, that's all. You know, let them, whoever really wants to open one up, okay, let one person open up one end, one person open up another end, but don't have so many.
Right here.
Okay, I'm speaking as a community member. I said I'm the legislative commission for anybody that knows. But I'm speaking as a community member. And if Angie's making a motion to, whatever she said, I'd like to second that motion. To have a referendum vote. Because like you said, there was a survey done, but as everybody's aware, I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to probably 20 people that have said they voted 10 times on that day that the survey went out. So how fair is that? How accurate is it? So the 20 people that I've talked to times 10, that's 200. To me, that's not accurate.
Go ahead.
What is the actual update to the status of working with this association and the development of the regulation? What's the relationship there to where they're at? Like if there's an interim one out already. So this association that surfaced, where suggestions were made at one of the meetings that they work together, where are they at in it all then?
So we met with the group last week that identified themselves as the Akwesasne Cannabis Association to discuss what the cannabis industry in the community could look like. And
Recreational?
Recreational, yeah. But I take that back. There was a conversation about perhaps micro cultivation as well in that conversation. We've asked for the representatives to, consider a couple of different things as far as membership goals, and nothing was provided to us in writing. So we've asked for some things in writing to consider and to see what, some options may be for us to, move that forward. Now, I will say that our council is not, will meet with any group that wants to talk about this. If the elders want to call council and talk about this, if the youth want to, we have actually had lots of dialogues in these forums at the general meeting. I believe the first one we had was in Snide probably 2 years ago at the Homemakers Club. And we've had lots of conversations around cannabis, right? And it moved into the survey now. Lots of scrutiny over the survey, whether or not that was proper, whether it was not. This really is a learning curve for us all the way, right? But one of the things that I have said, and is what are the opportunities, but also we have to be realistic on our approach, right? We all have seen what happened when the police took action on what exists now. We have seen how that reacted. Now, we do not direct the police force. The police force will continue to act as an independent body as they are. But the whole sector of cannabis is really a gray area. Now, are we a dry community? One would argue, yes, we are, because nobody's selling it here. But is there somebody selling it here? There perhaps could be, right? Let's not fool ourselves. So if we are to go an all-out bar, no selling nothing, no growing nothing, what is the reality of enforcement? We have issues now with residency enforcement. We have issues now with bylaw enforcement, dog enforcement, speeding enforcement. Like I don't, and I tell you this as it is. Not that I agree with all of this stuff, but these are real institutional problems and real problems we have on the ground. So we're going to say no cannabis in this community, and is it really going to be no cannabis in this community, right? So I do not want to set ourselves up for failure. Now, we completely respect the will of the community. Now, we have a legislative process in which the community has continued to participate in and continue to either accept laws or reject laws, right? So our thought process has been on the cannabis areas that the legislative committee will develop a law take it to the community, and if the community is not happy with it, then, you know, we'll vote it down by virtue, then we don't want this, right? That is how we have approached this thus far. Now, a referendum is something that we will give consideration to, you know, whether or not we're going to go down that avenue. But I must caution everybody, we have to be realistic on our approaches. We really, really do. But we have to have a system, whether it be no cannabis or cannabis, but with very fine parameters of what that's going to look like, right? So, you know, that's kind of where we have been going with it. But we're hearing what you're saying. We're hearing what you're saying. We will we will dialogue about it and figure what those next steps will be.
I'd like to know from the chiefs sitting, how do you feel about this? Like, I think that, you know, like, because like what we're talking about is, we're talking about the future. We're talking about my grandkids and whether or not I want them to have access to marijuana, recreational marijuana. Medical marijuana is just a whole different topic altogether because you do need a prescription. I don't know how recreational marijuana will be, how the dispensary will be, I don't know. Like, nobody really knows that.
Yeah.
But you know what, everybody's deciding for us. Canada decided that, yes, it's okay to sell cannabis, but the community of Akwesasne hasn't decided whether or not we want to go that way. And so I'd like to, you know, and I hate to do this for the chiefs, you know, but I know that for me, I was placed on the spot on, you know, by community members when a controversial question came up. So I'm going to ask the chiefs, how do you feel on this?
Well, I, for one, myself, identified that when this issue came forth and was coming down the pipeline, that whichever path we take is going to be a difficult one. And the only way we can practically choose the right path is community involvement. That's it for me.
So any other members that
Yeah, that's not saying yes or no.
Well,
I, for myself, I supported it in the beginning stages, but after the events of in February with the raids and stuff, I have second guesses about it because that shouldn't have happened, what happened in our community. And I feel concerned for the community. So.
Okay, so just one more comment. You have to keep in mind that for the youth, that a youth person, their brain is still developing until they reach the age of 25. So I haven't heard from, you know, what age a majority people are considering. Well, I think, you know, if our medical field and our medical practitioners, you know, all over North America are saying, hey, you know, we gotta watch it because the kids' brains are still developing right up until they're 25.
I'd ask that you please do ask the members if they would like to respond. Let them respond first before we move on to the next one.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your comments. For myself, I don't support cannabis as being in dispensaries. I don't think it's good for our community. I do, however, support it that it could be an economic development venture here in Akwesasne, and we look at a bigger component that allows us to trade with other First Nations or become a licensed supplier for Canada. And it goes off the community, but we are still taking part economically. But do I want to see dispensers in our communities, in our districts? No. I prefer we look at, if it's going to be here, we look at a way that it'll benefit our community versus harm our community.
Okay, thank you.
For me personally, I support the kind of a dispensary idea. I don't want to see us turn into a community where every 5 minutes or 5 feet there's another shop. No, I don't want to see that. I want to see something where it supports the economic opportunities that are being presented to us. However, I work in health. I've worked in health policy for about 10 years. So my concern is that cannabis is already here. Whether we want it here or not, it's already here. The danger that I see and that I've been witnessing in communities across the country is when it's laced with other stuff and when you're getting other things mixed with it that you're not aware of. And then people get hooked and people have died from things that have been mixed. So for me, knowing that cannabis is already here in this community, I want to see recreational because knowing that it's being tested, that all you're getting is cannabis and you're not getting anything like fentanyl or any of the crazy stuff mixed in it, those are my concerns from a health perspective. I understand the concerns, not being on council previously and kind of coming in and just going with how things were going. You know,
hindsight is 20/20. That's all we can say is, hindsight is 20/20. Now we see, okay, things that we could have done that could have been done differently. But, cannabis is here in the community. I would like to see safe cannabis that is accessible for people who choose to. Do I want it rammed down kids' throats at daycares and schools? Absolutely not. I do think we need to have strict laws and enforcement in place to make sure that, it's not outside the bank, it's not when you're trying to go pay your bills, exactly what some of the business people have stated, more control around it. So that's my opinion on it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members that wish to offer comments?
I'd like the community to decide. Have a referendum. If the other 7,000 community members want to vote it down or vote for it, then I'll accept that.
Okay, thank you. Farrell?
I was open to it at first, and then when the incidents that happened that night raised a lot of questions for me. Number one was the safety of the community. I mean, that night brought a lot of bad old feelings back. And I heard from the community a lot of elders speak saying, we don't want that here because they call it Guaxo for a reason, the bad weed. And they said, we don't want that here, that's not for us, because of the old feelings that came back from the 90s. And it brought a lot of people back that were here during the 90s, and they didn't want that again. So if that's gonna put our community at risk, then we don't want it here. And the question came up of a referendum, and I said, if you want a referendum, I'm in all favor of letting the community decide on whether we have it here or not.
When I began or decided to run for council back in April, May last year, it was a question that was asked during our candidates night. And I stand by what I said then. I said that education has to be the bottom line when it comes to cannabis. I don't support it. And I'm going to tell you why. Because of things that community members are saying. If we have members that are smoking it outside of public places, if we have buildings that are by our daycares, that's not well educated. That's not, the word isn't getting out there. Like Toby said, Chief Mitchell said, we have, kids we have weed that is being laced with other things, then the education isn't getting out there to the community. And if we already have seen so much going on, how do we go forward with it, knowing that already the community is not listening? We had regulations in place. Nobody wanted to follow them. The actions that happened on that Friday night, that never should have happened. So that's why I don't support it. I don't support it because the community member said, I don't want that for my grandchildren or my children. I don't want them to be able to go by somewhere and see kids smoking up like it's okay. It's not. I don't believe it is.
Thank you.
When I first got on council, the whole survey and everything was already done. And that was done from previous council. So, and as far as cannabis, almost a quarter of the cannabis industry, with a proper economic strategy, with a proper legislative and policy structure in place, as well as the health and education aspect of it. But it doesn't just stop in our departments. It has to even continue in the homes, with the parents, with the grandparents. The education process of the whole industry is not just on our shoulders. It's on all of our shoulders. So if we're going to pursue this, and like Mitchell had stated as well, it was here before it was even legalized. We read about it in the newspaper every week. So it's here. So if it's going to continue down this road, I think that, again, one perspective of how to see it is working together with all the departments. And that's my view, you know.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Last year, when all this was coming about, there was always that fear that I had of what's going to happen if we don't do anything about it. What's going to happen if we decide we're going to stay? We're going to say we're not going to have it on in Akwesasne. Who's going to say they're going to listen to us anyway? So I think the route that moving forward and trying to put laws and regulations in some type of way that we can control, I thought maybe that was the best route. And then here we began, because it's like the Wild Wild West. Everyone's going to open the doors, and here we come. And just like what happened in Tanganyika, it started slowly happening here. But we perked it. And I understand that people are upset that why can't we shut them down? Why can't we do this? But it came to a point on whose life is going to be lost because we're enforcing and they're battling against it because they think it's okay. So in the beginning, I did support it because I thought that's the only way we can make it safe here. That was my main concern because all the impacts that it had on, like Edward said, every department, every part of us, because not only are we dealing with cannabis, we're dealing with other types of drugs here, we're dealing with alcohol. And come on, we have to think about alcohol is not legal, or we're a dry Akwesasne in the Canadian portion. But the American portion, they can just go 2 doors down and come back across and they bring it back home. That's what we're dealing with. And my thought was, who are we to stop them from going to Ontario or going to Quebec and coming in and taking that risk and coming back in? And that they needed to be informed. And to me, the community, our responsibility as a community is to tell them what's going to happen to them.
Okay.
So it's a rough road and it's roughshod right now. And I apologize because it's a tough decision. And I know it's a way for us to build economy and it's a way for jobs, but at the same time, where's the safety? How do we balance that? And you know, it's an unfortunate place to live in.
Okay, thank you. Right, you had it.
Yeah, just a comment. My concern is, like our elder said here about, when Louis went around the community was selling his medical marijuana, and you're on APTN getting interviewed about the licensing issue and things like that. So it seems like the perception is that medical marijuana facility is going to turn and swing into this community to be recreational and sell it to all these guys that got their shops set up. So this public perception to that's going on with the younger generation is what's creating some of this turmoil around here too, because statements have been made in meetings as far as 7 Leaf goes as to, yes, they're a medical marijuana facility, they brought the federal government here to be regulated by them, but yous are working on a recreational law, let alone a medical law being in place to whatever the process is going on there. My concern is I don't want to see, because I support medical marijuana, so I don't want to be able to turn around and say, I can't get a medical marijuana card over there with my doctor, and nobody's going to cover it, so I'm going to walk into that medical marijuana facility and I'm going to get it. Because we hear the community rumors that fly around that, oh, we didn't know that now they're shipping some of that out into the community as recreational. Well, then if that's the case, I won't knock on that door because I need the medical, because it may be too expensive and nothing will cover it. Then I will walk into the recreational knowing that it should have been regulated there, knowing it was tested, there was no other chemicals added to it and whatnot. So I'm going to make an assumption it's safe that they're selling it in our own community now. I'll walk into the shop over there. Now it alleviates my pain. Hey, where do I fall into who I support now? I supported a local business in our community, but the law's got to be clear on the medical side, and I think there's a lot of confusion going on between medical and recreational to what happened that led up to these events and whatnot. And I got nothing against the younger generation. They have a different mindset of how they think nowadays, and what led up to that evening of of the violence and whatnot. I think that's what's put the fear in everybody now as to, where do we go with this? And you're right, Abram, we all know we're not a dry community. We all know that. We all live in the real world here, enough as us on that. The drugs that are going through, the question is, how much of the volume of that recreational stuff that's going through here is still staying here? How much of that volume is still sitting around here? Well, they're going to turn around and somebody's going to say, blame the cops because they ain't doing nothing about it. We all need to stop this blame game. It's a never-ending cycle. It's never going to end, these cycles. You know? Yeah. But if there's regulations in place, and I'm going to need that marijuana and I can't get it through a medical dispensary anywhere because nothing will cover it, and I got an extra 20 bucks in my pocket, and I really need a pain reliever, because I will not take prescription drugs for the pain that I'm suffering in my body right now. And every doctor you walk into, that's the first words out of their mouth. We got a pill for that. We got a pill for that. We got a pill for that. And so if there's a shop down the hill from here, and I can walk from there to there, knowing I can spend $10 and I'm going to be able to sleep because I'm going to walk back up the hill and I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And it's all regulated. And I walk out with that closed bag, and I'm a responsible adult, though. There's a big difference between being a responsible adult and the younger generation. Big difference there. So that education component is where it comes in to being, what do we do now to start educating them? So my concern right now is about the medical marijuana facility, to how it may filter back into if they somehow start putting the recreational out into the community. That's my concern.
Okay.
I thought we got the wolf pulled over our eyes now as to that. Because Louis came right to my office and convinced me that medical marijuana was the best thing since sliced bread.
It's not though. I mean, they cannot just start selling into the Akwesasne stores. Like, there's a lot of complexity over that, but again, what I've heard a couple times, education for people to understand how the system works. I mean, and you hit the nail right on the head on that, so.
Yeah, okay, thank
yes,
you.
right here.
The concern I have in this community is the drugs that are not regulated, such as cocaine, heroin, those drugs. And people can put their head in the sand, but you look at your kids, they're digging in there. They're all affected. There's not one family on this reserve that hasn't lost a child to those opioids, cocaine. Everybody smokes pot, I guess. I haven't done it in 62 years. I don't believe it. I haven't started, never needed it, so I don't see any reason to start. But you go to the arena, they're playing hockey. They go outside and they smoke a joint. Like, come on, wake up. Those kids, we get lost, we support them in their supports. But the ones that are on cocaine, you look at them, those people are scary. Because you can't trust them. One minute they're done, the next minute they change like that. I know through experience dealing with these people. But pot, I haven't, come on. Everybody that smokes pot, that experiences it, knows what the effects are. Right?
That's not the issue I'm talking about.
But the issue is the safety. And with the safety of this community, if they're going to do it, and it's going to be regulated, and that, mine say safety of the community and the members. Like Cheryl said, a responsible adult. The bag's shut up. If somebody opens, it's like having a case of beer sitting on your driver's seat. You're going down the road. If you open that up, you're responsible. When the cop stops you. Same thing. Right? Let's use common sense. The ones that I'm really pissed off at, the drug dealers that are not being touched. They're selling cocaine. And that's really affecting my kids. You don't know how many times I wanted to go myself and kick the doors in, because I know who they are. But I know the protocol that takes place, that has to, it ties their hands.
All right, thank you. In the back, sir? Yeah.
You know what? When you guys talking how you feel about each thing, you want it to be money-making business here for our people. You said the same thing when you sold our land in Cornwall. It's going to be a money-making adventure. All that happened is we lost our land. And after this, when you regulate for this marijuana, we're going to be losing our kids, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, so we can make money. And in the meantime, we're making their minds go crazy. I don't understand, like we give false hope of our kids. Why can't we educate our kids and tell them, you don't need that stuff. You don't need that to get high. Help your people. Do something. There's your high. But no, we gotta make money here. Jeez. I don't know about you guys.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You know, just to build on what Cheryl was saying, you know, maybe, if you want to look at a revenue stream, wouldn't it be the plant?
Well, we haven't said that we're going into this to make money, right? There may be some economic opportunities later on, but the forefront is trying to find a balance in what this is going to look like, right?
And I just want a referendum, I want to vote.
Okay. We have heard what you have to say about that. We've heard all of the things that you have to say. You know, we do know this is a very delicate issue. This is, you know, we've heard from lots of people on it. So we have been talking about this, you know, for a couple of years now. Are we where we want to be? No. You know, have we started the process? Yes. Is there other things that we can look at, or other ways that we can, you know, take turns to move in other directions? You know, there's some possibilities, right? And, I want to thank all of you for your comments and feedback on this. You know, we will take this deliberation back to council, and we will report it back at the next general meeting as to, you know, what some of the next steps will be. I mean, we have lots to consider on this issue. I just want to, I'm very conscious of time, and this is not a conversation we've had about cannabis. It's not the last conversation we'll have about cannabis. We do have a district meetings, we do have another general meeting, we do have, you know, audience of council.
This ain't about cannabis, that's what I want to ask.
Okay.
It's about your reports.
Okay.
You guys put your reports out, but it does lead into one of your reports about money. So my question is, in your report, April, you write the 10-year grant under that ISC,
Yeah.
and then the financial administration law and the draft agreement. So is the 10-year grant contingent upon the financial administration law passing first and then?
No.
Because you are already working on a draft agreement, and that draft agreement that you mentioned that they're going to send to the government, whenever it gets sent here, is the community going to have an opportunity to provide feedback to that agreement?
Likely not. And I'll tell you why. Because it's an administrative agreement between the Mohawk Council and the Government of Canada. And we have hundreds of agreements that we sign all the time. They don't go to the community. Now, if they want to see it, we can. But normally, practice is contribution agreements, which is a 10-year grant, is only a contribution agreement, does not go to the community for consultation.
Okay. So the Federal Development Ontario, in your report, it says delivers programming to support business development. Does MCA get any money from that Federal Development Ontario?
The MCA does not, but there are some programs that are available to the Community Futures Development Corporation in Cornwall that businesses could apply for. But they have to be in Ontario.
And my last question, I think Chief Joe, on the end, the Cree Nation hunters, and they want to come and hunt in our territory with our toxic animals, are we allowing them? PCP racing filled animals and fish, are we allowing them, the Crees to come in?
Oh, we're going to be liable for that.
Probably will. Are we allowing them to come here into the territory? What's the consensus of the council?
Well, we wrote a letter up to them, and we're trying to develop a reciprocal agreement with them. As it stands right now, when the stuff come out, we are not allowed to go up there and hunt. It's a one-way street. It's got something to do with a James Bay agreement. If we do go up there and hunt, we're treated as a non-First Nation. But here, they come down here. By the time I got on council, this was already rolling. It was already happening. Not knowing the background of that James Bay Agreement. So I went ahead, when the conservation officer we had, under my assumption, First Nation went under the Creator's Law to share the wildlife, and that's what we did. But I didn't know about that James Bay Agreement. Now recently it's up front, we're addressing it. We're trying to sit with them. This year they came down, Taylor, our conservation officer, did issue the letters.
That they could?
That they could. But they hunt in our traditional territories north, near the 417 on the farmers' lands. But it's still our territory. So they still come here and get the permission slips. They don't actually hunt right here on a reserve. It's in their traditional territory. And they hunt for geese. So in that letter, he sent it that we sit down with them and we negotiate a reciprocal agreement between First Nation and First Nation.
Any of them been arrested?
What's that?
Any of them been arrested for doing that over there?
No,
Through
no.
their conservation people or?
No, because they have our letter.
Oh, yeah?
They have our letter.
So
And
not
then
physically
we
here,
amend,
Getting our deer and our poison apples.
and to amendment to that was to, all we allow, they come in by families. So we allowed it where, let's say the father, he's got 5 kids, 1 sheep, okay, 5 of you son, they come in groups. And as of the Iroquois caucus meeting on Tuesday up in Tyndonega, the other 7 communities, the Mohawk communities, agreed that they're going to make their own letters and that we all agree to sit down with them. So we've got a 2-week time limit to sit with this Cree authority near the James Bay. So that's out there. It's sent, invitations out there for us to go sit with them and do some kind of a First Nation reciprocal agreement. So they do allow us to go up there and harvest. We're trying to get rid of that word hunt. We're using harvest.
Okay, thank you. We
Okay,
do have a number of
Donato.
hands that we want to go through some questions, so be here, then in the back over here, over here. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for giving your opinions on this candidacy. I just want to ask Joe, you're the only one that we haven't heard from. What's your opinion, Joe?
If you don't want to say anything, don't think or just say yes.
How about I just say no?
That's all you, that's it, that's all.
Just no. I'm not for it.
You're not for the candidates?
No, the member has said no, that he's not, so. All right, we're gonna move along. Straight back.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Barker, Chief Mohawk.
I think you went on vacation.
It might be right now.
In November, our rent is going to be raised.
Not that I'm aware of. It hasn't come to the portfolios table.
Someone also said that it's going to be raised in November.
I don't, not that I'm aware of, but I can check on it for you.
Okay, but if it were to happen, can it be prevented? I mean, even though all the tenants signed the lease saying something about rent is not negotiable, but I think it should be negotiable because not everybody can afford, you know, where we're living and stuff like that. Even our elders, where they're renting, because most of us are on fixed income. So I would like to know if it could just stay like this for any number of years. And even though if stuff's going up where you have to fix apartments and whatever, they can figure out a way to budget, you know, look for stuff that's not so expensive when it comes to fixing apartments. That way it doesn't, you know, like make it harder for us where we're gonna have to pay more rent because the cost is going up.
That's like, I'll get an answer for you. I'll have it for you. I'll see you around, and now I'll have an answer for you at the next general meeting. I'll confirm that with Houses for you.
Thank you. I was over here in the back. Yeah.
I just wanted to, I know that Vince has been working really diligently on the playground equipment of our playground over here, but we just went through a long weekend and there was still no basketball nets, so I'm just asking that we get our basketball nets back in the tennis courts.
Well, we're moving into that, direction, like I've been reporting back, and it's kind of getting frustrating. We have to identify who actually is going to be being part of the funding situation. Is because if we're going to go back into that area, I want it modernized, I want the equipment to be better, and it's going to be more durable and sustainable. So our kids are growing, they're the size of gorillas now, and I don't want them to rip down the nets like when I used to play over there, you know. You're able to grab that rim, you're going to grab it, you're going to hang on to it forever. So it's got to be durable, you know, because our kids are getting pretty damn big out there, you know.
But they're going to be bigger if we don't keep on using them in recreational.
Well, everybody's just going to be patient. I can't control that.
Two nets up, you know, for the kids, for the youth. Because you're there
Well,
all
what we can do is see if we can do portable ones right now, just to you know, get it going again. And but we're still working on it. And I got a meeting coming up soon, and I also reached out to our ACFS program, and they're going to try and put some proposals together to the principals, see if we can get some dollars out of there to finish it up. And I also asked them to let me know on what their capabilities are, so I can move forward and not rely on one funding source. I can move forward to others. Like the companies that actually came down and were part of the corridor development to kick back to this community because they make money here.
And at the same time too, you know, because I know we didn't use the tennis courts, but it was being molded into a volleyball court. Is that still a possibility?
There's 2 basketball courts designated in that area. There's 1 volleyball court. There's even a sitting area. There's a Johnny on spot bathroom facility. There's going to be even a drinking fountain there. And the way that the crosswalk got put in place where 2 different age groups can use it at the same time. That's why we pulled it away from the fence. So I got a copy of the design that we put forward, and we also shared that with the Boots family because we took their information, their interest on it, and they loved the idea. Their first design was to do the whole area, but they said they would rather have future interest on the other portion, so we shrunk it down to the smaller. So I can bring those plans forward and share it at the next district meeting.
Thank you for raising that with us.
Do you have an estimate of what it will cost?
Right now, because we're even talking bleachers too. We're talking bleachers. There's room for bleachers there. We're moving the courts away from the fencing, so there can actually be bleachers there also, and trash cans again. And we're also we got to bring in the one of the recreation department in on this also, is because they're going to have to be a part of the maintenance part of this, along with DPS or whichever type of group that is available to volunteer some time there.
How would it be if the community did a fundraiser?
What's that?
How would it be if the community did a fundraiser?
Well, that's something that we can discuss too. If we start struggling on what I'm working on, if there's shortfalls, then maybe that can happen, is because I think we failed on one part where we didn't apply to the trust. And that's where we could actually advertise that the trust dollars is working for our community by putting a recreation area in one district.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and then
Scheduling the meetings. I think the election law meeting's on Monday, and then the Indian Day School is on Monday, or is
So-
when are they canceled or something?
so there
Can't
was,
be at 2 places at one time.
as I reported earlier, and I'm going to report that to Jeremy, there was a meeting scheduled for Monday on the election law amendments. It is going to be rescheduled to May 9th because it overlaps with the days. And now that I will talk about meetings, this Saturday will be the first meeting for the election law amendments from 10 to 12 at Yohakio. So there'll be one Saturday, and then May 9th will be the next one on the Akwesasne election law amendments. Are there any final issues that I wanted to be raised this evening? I know that we've covered lots of ground. The members will be available to you if you want to speak further. I thank all of you for coming out this evening to the general meeting. Yes?
Sega.
Reside.
Actually, I just wanted to kind of bring up a couple of things. My name is Tamara Cook, and I'm sure a couple of you actually know who I am. First, I wanted to ask you who holds the Department of Transportation portfolio for, what is that, Angus Memorial?
Roads?
Yeah.
Roads.
For the roads?
Technical services, so Teresa.
That would be you. And what is your name?
Chief Teresa Jacobs. Myself, Vince Thompson, and Chief Joe Lazor as well.
Because actually I've been asked by a couple of the elders because the roads are so bad. One of the things that I learned actually is that in order to bring an issue to your attention, it has to be put in writing, okay? And this isn't just something, it's something that I learned myself. My mother's always taught me to make a paper trail, okay? So this is what they came to me and asked me to do because apparently the roads are so bad that they're damaging the vehicles and there's nothing being done about it.
Which road?
Angus Memorial. I know you guys did actually a little bit of patching there. I did see some of it. When I initially went and I met with the elder, the road was very bad. After I met with the elder, I think it was probably like maybe a week and a half later, maybe 2 weeks tops, I went back. It looked like there was some patching done, but the roads are still kind of, you know, and the elder was still very adamant about wanting to make sure to bring this to your attention.
Can you see which, did she say what, between what streets?
It's like just right there in Whoville. It's like that road right there.
That's Whoville. That's
Oh,
in
Snod. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not really too familiar name-wise, so yeah.
Well, that road's been on our radar, and we've been talking about it over and over, and before we can even do any type of really good maintenance work on there, we gotta secure the funding for it, and there's no sense in sinking $600,000 into that area if the foundation of that roadway is failing and it needs to be restructured. So why would we spend $600,000 on a Band-Aid when everybody's just got to be patient and try and get the adequate amount of money to fix that whole stretch, which I think it has a price tag of 1.7 mil.
Okay, so in the process though.
We're in the process, but there's also, we talked about this other thing, we had a portfolio meeting and a roads meeting where I says, wouldn't it be wise to scrape off and get rid of all the pavement and turn it back into a gravel road so when it gets bad like that, just to buy us some time where it won't be so costly, and then the radius goes down there and scrapes it and monitors it in that fashion so that it's easier on the vehicles until the money is secured, and then we can go in and do an all-out road repair.
No, I respect all that. I can understand what you're saying because I actually come from a background of construction. Okay. Actually, my upbringing was construction mason, so I understand what you're saying. But on this point here, my issue and the reason why this elder brought it to my attention is, see, even just driving down the road and saying, that's hell on wheels right there. Right? So I had to go through this process to see what could be done, why these roads were not taken care of. What I was actually able to find out was that everybody liked to pass the buck. Go see this one, go call this one, go see this one, go see this one. So by the time I was done doing all of that, I actually had to call an insurance company to make a claim because it just damaged my car. That insurance company actually wrote me back and told me, well, I'm sorry, we can't do anything because according to our records, there's nothing wrong with that road. This is the thing that we're coming upon as far as this paper trail being able to.
Just most recently, we're addressing that issue is because we just signed on to a MTQ Quebec agreement until 2025 to continue giving us money for this maintenance of these roadways. Now, when that money was limited and there was barely anything and to service all these roadways, sure, some roads are going to fail. Okay, so when we pick back up that file, just last year, we signed this multi-year agreement that they're going to contribute monies to us. Unfortunately, the roads were already too damaged in order for that money to effectively improve the road conditions. So now we're in the reconstruction phase.
So that's something that's going to be coming
Yes.
in the very near future?
We just had a meeting at the beginning of this month on that road particularly, Wade LaFrance.
I'm going to ask that you please, you had mentioned a couple issues that you wanted to speak to. I want responses to be a bit shorter. You can speak with the member after the meeting on more particulars of this because I'm super conscious of time. It is 9:15 at this point. We are 1 hour and 15 minutes over our scheduled time, so.
All right, well, and actually, the only other thing, one of the other things I want to talk about, there's actually two other things. One is that, okay, I've only come back into the community permanently within the last 4 years, okay? And my interaction with the chiefs has not been the greatest, all right, to say the least. One, I was actually addressed by one of the chiefs as being a half-breed, okay? The other was that one of my children was actually referred to as you people that come from the city, all right? Now let me tell you a little bit about us people that come from the city, okay? Since I've been here, I've worked with the elders, I've spoke for the elders, I've helped the elders, I've cared for the elders. I've done this all free, without no charge, because it's my responsibility. So me actually looking to you guys and expecting that you're gonna actually have my best interest is kind of hard when one of you actually spoke the way you did to my child, okay? Now, coming in here, I see that you have all this economic development, all right? But I have a hard time understanding is that why you're trying so hard to push for economic development on land that's contaminated. Why you are not pushing to have this land so that it's actually usable, like Angie was saying, to use for our future generations, for our children, for our grandchildren. Why you're not pushing for that? Why you're actually pushing to allow these outside entities and these outside corporations to come in and to dictate how we do things on our land, all right? I read this. This was something that I needed to understand, which is when I came up here, why there's so much division here. One of the things I was able to find out was that apparently there was a treaty that was made, which is called the George Washington Treaty. Okay, didn't understand it, didn't know what it meant. That treaty goes right down the front of my yard, right down the front of my house. I actually came upon this here. It's called the Seven Nations of Canada, an Alliance and a Treaty. Okay. In here, it's just a quick little thing that I highlighted. In violation of its own laws, the state of New York sold 3,840,000 acres of land in northern New York to Alexander Macomb in May of 1791. The New York offer to sell made no mention of the Mohawks still residing in this area. It is possible that the state officials felt that the negotiations were absolved by force of the 1787 treaty with the Six Nations. The Mohawk did not participate in this treaty, however, and in their estimation, their lands were still intact. Macomb was aware of Akwesasne, and in a separate paper from his agreement with the New York State, he agreed to reserve some islands and a 6 square mile tract of land for use of the Indians. In 1792, a year after Macomb's purchase was finalized, a deputation from the Seven Nations of Canada sent word to the governor of New York that white settlers had settled on Lake Champlain and the shores of the St. Lawrence. They requested a council to discuss this invasion of southern Mohawk land. Okay, so I'm trying to understand how we actually went from our traditional territory, like you're speaking, okay, because my understanding is our territory goes from Montreal to Ottawa to Albany to New York City. So I'm always trying to understand how we got to where we are. And this is the understanding that I'm told, because somebody actually told me that there is a Seven Nations treaty, and this is it. Well, this actually states that even in here, that the Seven Nations was right, that this was not a valid treaty. There was 3 people that signed this treaty that represented and spoke for an entire nation, when we ourselves know that you can't do that. We actually work unified as a community. So who were these 3 people that actually got to go and speak for me, for my children, for my grandchildren, where we're left to try to make use out of land that is contaminated, and we're constantly fighting a government who is always putting stipulations on us on how we can move, when we can go back and forth across our land, because I'm tired of it. Do you know how many times I've been harassed since I've been up here? About 300 times I've been pulled in. They've never found nothing. But I've been harassed. Just the other day, I was assaulted over there on the Canadian side by a border agent. No, I'm sorry, it's American side. Geez, that was the other incident. I was pulled in over there. Constantly. I do not feel I have to come out of my house and tell somebody where I'm going and how long I'm going to be there and who I'm going to see. But this is what we subject ourselves to by allowing them to continue this line that goes down the middle of our territory. And we're fighting over it just to make it safe. We're making it a community. Why aren't we fighting to make it ours again, all of it? Not just this little 6x6, all of our traditional territory. That's what we should be fighting for. Because out there, There's tons of farmland. Do you know how many people, and it's so sad, and I know we've all been affected because I know how many people have actually said something. How many of us have been affected and had to bury a family member? In the 4 years that I've been here, I've buried quite a few. You don't catch cancer. Cancer is here in this ground, and it's in the water, and it's in the air. That's what we should be fighting for.
I want to thank you very much for the information that you have shared with us and the questions that you have asked on the road. I will ask members to follow up with you, and I thank you for sharing that. So, I do have a resolution that I need to read for the record this evening. It accepts the Mohawk Council accepts and approves the general meeting minutes dated March 28, 2019. Could I have a mover? Moved by Julie, second by Vince. Discussion on the resolution? Question has been called on the resolution. All in favor of the resolution? Resolution is carried. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for coming out this evening to our general meeting. Our next general meeting will be held on May 23rd in the district of East Nightingale. I also encourage you to attend the information meetings that we have coming up on Saturday and Sunday. So thank you very much. Could I have a motion to adjourn?